Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Aurora. I am so pleased to be here today. Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, August 2nd, 2023 already. And this is lesson 4 for level 2. Let me just pull up my notes. This is a good one. I was just literally re listening to it as I was preparing for class. It's called Telepathy and the Functioning of the Higher Senses. So one of the big distinctions, as I just jump right in, is, when I did these recordings 10 years ago, and I think that our entire human dynamic was more bifurcated in the sense of here's the heart, and then there's the lower self or the ego self, and then here is the higher self. But I think that humanity, applause, has done an enormous amount of integration work in terms of building the bridge between the ego, mundane, earthly self and the higher levels or the subtle body or the non-physical senses, and done good integration work. And now, like, everybody is thinking more in terms of full spectrum humans, and I think that's very, very positive. So that was my encouragement from 10 years ago, and now I'm really seeing it, less of a distinction being made between lower self and higher self. But I will say, like, let's make a distinction of the senses of the five senses physical realm in contrast to the senses that sense the subtle realm, the realm of pure energy, or the realm of pure time, imagination, and pure cognition or thought structure. Because when I'm talking about your higher senses, just, in order to use, a consistent vocabulary word, I'm talking about everything that is, I use the body like a linear yardstick, but I want you to know that it's within every cell of your body. Like, it's not just like your highest sense is up here and up here, but then there's no higher sense in your toes. No. Like, I really want you to know that your highest senses encompass the entirety of your somatic cellular structure, the entirety of all that you are. So the nuclei of all of your cells are analogous to this right up here, which is your crown, which is your violet chakra, or connection to divine source, or God consciousness, or yourself as the fastest, most eternal, most infinite aspect of being that you could be, the all-knowing, all-encompassing, all-experiencing source and also destination of who and what you are. Once again, that is not just a little spot up here, up above your skull. That is a spot that is at the center, epicenter of every single one of your cells. Like, here is your cell membrane, and then within there, here is your nucleus. This is object not drawn to scale. And then inside of your nuclei, DNA. And your DNA is an analog of that perfect infinity point and connective point. So when we talk about accessing these higher faculties, what we're really talking about is, yes, there's the pineal gland, and yes, there's the crown, which is this area right here at the top of your head, but also, I'm kind of scooting down, and I'm on my treadmill now, like a little bit up above your head, which would be considered the next octave. Wait, I've got my piano on, let's see how crazy it sounds. Okay, it sounds pretty normal. Here's an octave. Here's C, and here is C. All right, so when you go up the scale and you get to the next octave, you don't pop out of existence, you just get to the next level that then repeats the same pattern. Right? So you keep on going in a very, very positive, infinite sense. Not in an infinite hamster wheel of torture, as people are very, very afraid of. In a positive, infinite level of exploration and divine perfection. All right? And you know what? I'm going to talk a lot in this presentation today about mind and mastering mind and telepathy. It's so exhausting, though. As I was re-listening, I'm like, I'm going to melt because I'm going to have to be like, in a perfect world, blah, blah, blah. But then in our extremely screwed up and effed up world, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can just say, like, let's just talk about things in a perfect world. It is a little bit exhaustive. Like, that I continually refer to and live in acknowledgement of the very, very real challenges that we have in terms of mastering our mind and achieving spiritual attainment. But, and also, as per this teaching, sharing, It's really important to focus on the things and attenuate to the things that you actually wish to ingest and give birth to. And so let's give minimal attention and minimal verbal information and acknowledgement to what I non-lovingly call the crapola, and talk about the stuff that we actually want to talk about. So your higher senses, your five senses. I can pull up some pictures. Wait, it's picture time and good stuff that we like. So first I'll show you this. We've seen this sketch before, and I've also sent it out as part of, there we go. Okay, just get the annotation. I've sent it out as part of my emails, and it's in the PDF, so that way you can really look at it if you're looking on a little phone screen and you really want to see what's going on. But what you see here is a very nicely accurate anatomical drawing of the interplay of the heart chakra, that which emanates from the center of your chest, the indigo chakra, which is where you see these wheels kind of to the side of where the ears of the person are, the anthropomorphic form, meaning human face. You got one face, two eyes, one nose, one mouth. It's roughly human shaped. And then up here, the crown chakra. So when I talk about your higher faculties, I talk about all of those things. This drawing doesn't emphasize it, but we also include the throat chakra, which is communication and truth and authenticity, okay? So that represents, just going back to my face, an aspect of your being similar to, like, you know how your circulatory system includes the heart, the pump, also your lungs, also all of your veins and arteries and fluids that go throughout your body. All right, so it's not just one localized system. It is a series of organs that all work together and integrate in order to create a larger experience of longevity. Same exact thing with your highest senses. Your heart is an essential part of it. And when I talk about your heart, I'm not just talking about the fluid dynamics of what puts blood and oxygen and nutrients around your body. I'm also talking about, let's play it, love tone. Love tone is the tone of reciprocity, of equal giving and receiving as you move through time, or really in any relationship, that you are receiving one unit and you are emitting one unit. And in my notes and in my presentation from 10 years ago, I want to be really, really clear about this. I talk about achieving the lean, essential form of what your ego is and your definition of self. And I talk about, like if you have excess body fat or excess, mass in your body, that represents non-essential aspects of self. But I really want to be clear that this is not about fat shaming in any way. This is not about recognizing people as having a wrong shape in their body. It's more like saying in the body metabolism, if more calories go in than are expended, then the body changes shape and gets these extra layers. And then when you achieve a positive homeostasis, meaning equal amounts of calories are going in as are going out through the caloric, kinetic expression, that then you have a balance and you're the essential equipment, but not carrying a lot of, let's say, undigested experiences. But I also want to recognize I've become much more educated now about, it is called malnutrition in the presence of calories. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact words right, because I've been learning all about horrible stuff. I don't want to attenuate to glyphosate. That's why you want to eat a bunch of extra sulfur in your diet, like broccoli sprouts and other good things that contain sulfur, or take a supplement, because that helps the fourth phase of water effect through the circulatory system of your body. Please look at the work of Dr. Stephanie Sennett, Sennett, I think. I've just been introduced to her work. So anyway, it's a tangent to today's presentation, but worthy of acknowledging, because basically glyphosate, the Roundup weed killer that's in food and water in our environment right now, causes nutrient deficiency even when people eat. So it means that you eat calories, but the body doesn't really absorb it. And then the body's like, I'm still hungry. I need micronutrients. I need minerals. Where's my minerals? And the answer is the minerals all just got stripped away because of the, whatever, bowl of oatmeal or Cheerios or whatever it was that the person ate. And then they're still hungry because they are literally in a malnutrition state even while they are ingesting calories. So that is a big aside that I just have to make very, very clear, because I know many people struggle with maintaining the optimum body shape. So I don't want anybody to feel discouraged by the things that I said or take things out of context. And one of the best things that you can do is avoid foods that contain glyphosate, and then take an extra sulfur supplement, which is like MSM, or like I said, broccoli sprouts and other good stuff. So that's just a brief aside clarifying that, because I'm also always super responsible, responsive, and very sensitive to the things that I say. Like when I say something or wrote something 10 years ago, then it's kind of in a vacuumless context. But then when I see how it is perceived, especially through the social and culture filter, I'm like, oh wait, I really have to make sure that that gets clarified so that it's not taken in the wrong way. So let's talk. So this teaching is about essentially activating your higher senses and mastering your mind as the key to becoming a responsible and fully mature galactic citizen. And I also lovingly say, and it's still true, even though everyone's leveled up a lot in 10 years since I recorded the original materials, that we are infants of consciousness. All right, so just be it's a positive thing to be an infant of consciousness, and recognize that you're at the beginning of your evolutionary growth phase as it relates to psychic powers. And that is also what humans of this time place would call and define your light body. So first of all, what is your light body? It is also your time body. It's the pictures that I'm always sharing. You want me to pull up another picture? Wait. Let's see if I've got something good for you. Just pull it up super fast. That's your light body. AKA your time body, AKA the clouds or standing waves, fields of possibilities and probabilities that surround and interpenetrate your somatic cellular anthropomorphic form. And that light body has its own senses. So the journey of awakening, cultivating awakening, and recognizing and fully inhabiting and focusing on your light body or your time body is analogous to the journey that you went on in coming here as a little tiny human shaped infant. All right. And of course, like, I'm a walk-in, so I didn't come here in infancy, but I had a lot of parallel experiences, and I can certainly relate to a lot of the things that you went through. And I know a lot about the levels of human development. Okay. So I know that people go through these levels of development. So when babies are first born, like, there's all of these raw sensory data that floods the nervous system, and the baby is kind of like, I see things, I sense things, I hear things, I taste things. I don't really even have names for what these senses are, but weird things happen. Something goes in my mouth, something comes out the other end, things happen, I smell stuff. It takes a long time for little human babies to begin to make sense of the world. Like, many months. For many months, they are receiving information from their eyes, but they don't yet know how to decode or make sense of the shapes and light and darkness that they see around them. Similarly, hear auditory signals, even auditory signals while in the womb before being born, but the babies do not yet have the processing ability to make sense of what these auditory signals are. And it's literally a process of organizing the brain and the neurology to be able to then form a picture of the world. And at a certain point, you're like, I see this blurry shape and something goes in my mouth, but then you recognize, like, that's a face, that's a person, and like, that's your mom and she's breastfeeding you, like, something goes in your mouth, and then someone's there and they're taking care of you and they smell a certain way. And you start to make sense of the world. Okay, this is what it is to be like a sacred infant of consciousness, beginning to make sense of the world. It's the same thing when your light body starts to wake up. So, I had cats out of the bag. Like, we talk about this all the time. I don't have to wait until lesson 18. But lesson 18 is all about the genetic degradation of human body form and human experience and perception. The suppression and diminishment of, like, why kind of be like, why do I have to learn about these psychic powers? How come I don't already know about all of this stuff? Why am I just waking up to this now? Very, very fair for you to ask yourself that. And the answer is because, there has been a large campaign of consciousness suppression throughout what is known as recorded human history, and it can be distressing to learn about that. So if you feel like it's time to call the Cosmic Complaints Department, good, it's valid, fair. But you're waking up to these senses and becoming empowered now because something specifically disconnected you and disempowered you as an ancient or concurrent spiritual battle, really, that is going on. So when you start to awaken, what you're doing is adding energy to the light body, like literally getting more momentum in these spinning wheels of energy that are all around you, and beginning to consciously feel and sense the information, perception, and cognition events that happen in those layers of your body. So you always have those layers of your body. And now I'm going to draw a little something that actually, grabbing my pen, this actually might come up in a subsequent lesson or be from level 1, but let's just draw this for you because it's a good analogy. Okay, wait, here's my color. Gotta get a good color. Good color. Here, oh, and someone's coming in. Here is like the surface of water. And then down here, we're just gonna draw a very rudimentary fish. It's a pink fish, all right? Rudimentary, right? And put a little eye over here. And the fish has all of these different feelers that, like some of these exist in the physical world, right? There's red is the physical, orange, emotional, yellow, intellectual, right? But then some of these feelers go up above the surface of the water into the less dense realm. That is the realm of air. So I'm just going to truncate this rainbow. You know that there's, actually no, I'm drawing everything fully. Because I'm that way, guys. I can't leave a half-drawn or incomplete rainbow. And I'm using both colors of blue. Boom. Good. This fish has sensory organs, feelers, appendages that go into the less dense realm, up above the surface of the water. And the fish's consciousness might not be fully aware. Oops, I should have drawn that line. Wait, go backwards. I'm gonna draw this line more like this. That's all the stuff that the fish wasn't even aware of. The fish was mostly aware of all of this stuff over here, right? And when you look up at the surface of the water over here, it's like a mirror. So you don't even really see anything up above there. And then it is a big leap forward to be able to recognize all of this stuff is aspects of you, and it's all doing stuff in another dimension. For you, the another dimension is a realm up above the level of density that you're at. So water is a certain level of density, right? And then air or atmosphere is less dense than water. And right now you're in a certain level of density, a material, physical realm, and most people have been focusing for survival reasons on their 5 senses of the physical realm. And you have a whole entire aspect of self that is being projected upward and outward into this higher dimensional, less dense realm that you've just been unfocused on and not aware of. So this is the process of becoming aware of those aspects of self. And then here's the journey. First you become aware of it. You're like, something is happening. I'm feeling and sensing something, like something is going on, like a baby, like something's going in my mouth. Something is happening here. And then at a certain point, you become empowered and you start to control the senses or the appendages that are up there. So, little babies, at first, like, they wave their arms around, they kind of hit themselves in the head, they hit their cribs, they hit their stuffed animals, they kind of can't control their physical bodies. Even little toddlers have a lot of challenges. They are still learning how to walk, they're still learning how to, like, pour juice out of a jug and not spill it all over, like, things that you might take for granted in adulthood. But these fine motor skills took a long time for you to develop as you were connecting to your physical presence, right? Same exact thing with the appendages that stick up or out into the higher dimensional, less dense realm, which includes the appendage of your inner eye. And your inner eye is an aperture, like inward stuff comes in, but also it's an appendage that sticks out. So now it's time for me to do my teaching about attenuos. So this is your attention. There is a tendril of attention. I always use my little pen in order to signify that, like a long skinny finger that comes outward from your true mind, from your true perception. And it senses the world around you, and it also senses time. And it tastes things. It tastes situations. And anything that you are focusing your attention on, you are attenuating to, and you're eating tiny pieces of it. So that's why I always thank everyone. I'm in true gratitude when people watch my videos. You are literally attenuating to me. You are focusing your mind on me, thinking about me, thinking about the words that I'm saying or the concepts that I'm presenting, and you're ingesting small amounts of what I am emitting to you. That's big stuff. Even if you just looked at a picture of me, you'd be ingesting or attenuating to me. You get it? So this is big, big, big stuff. And that's why I don't want to only focus unduly on the negative and the consciousness suppression mechanisms in our world, because what you focus on with your attention, you're ingesting. And when you ingest stuff, it affects your metabolism. And it gives you ideas, and it can kind of destabilize you if it's not nutritive. Non-nutritive ingestion is not what we want. And this is about mastering the mind. So when you're an infant of consciousness, this tendril of attention is kind of all over the place. And that's what we have perceived mostly in the activity of the untrained human mind, previous to the deployment of the millimeter waves of poop crapola. Millimeter waves of poop crapola affect me, and I have mastered my mind. And that mastering your mind, it's fine for me to say that. It's like saying if you're a marathon runner and you're like, yep, I trained and then I ran 26 miles. It's something that you did. I trained my mind and I'm able to run 26 miles and I'm able to be focused and be in control of my mind. But when they turned on the poop crapola waves, then I was like, what is going on here? And then it became very, very difficult for me to maintain the sovereignty of my mind and maintain my mental focus, choose the words, articulations, and phrasings that I wanted to, and also think in the directions and perceive reality in terms of the contexts that I desired, as opposed to something else superseding my willpower. So that's what I don't want to unduly attenuate to, but want to acknowledge that it ain't easy. It ain't easy, kid. Like, you're in a weird world right now where you don't necessarily have full control, even though you should, over the choices that you're making with your mind. So please recognize that you're coming of age in a war zone or in a very, very difficult, challenging time, but don't be unduly intimidated by that either. And that what you really need to do is continually attenuate to and focus on the truth of divine intelligence. And divine intelligence is everything that I paint in my paintings. I have the window shades, I have the shades drawn. It's like very, very hot outside, so that's why you can't really see my studio very well, but you can see what's on my dress. It's the divine mind, perfect architecture. Focusing on that is freeing and invigorating and truly nourishing. And so everything that you want to do in terms of mastering your mind is about transcending any of the lower level thoughts that are kind of just, I want to say crapola thoughts, but they're not implantations. They're just not glorious. Sometimes lower level thoughts are about judgment of others or judgment of self or bringing people down or I guess what people would call negativity, even though it's perfectly acceptable to have a negative impression. Like if I fed you burnt food and I was like, how is this food? It's perfectly acceptable and ascended for you to be able to say it was terrible. Aurora, like the food was burnt, I hated it. And because I need to hear that as the chef. So that's not negativity, but negativity in the sense of constant complaint or dissatisfaction, that those are like, the de-energizing thought structures that really don't help you on the marathon of life. And then there are thought structures that are hugely invigorating, that are about the divine mind of perfect organization and cosmic law, that are hugely invigorating and fun and wonderful. And when you attenuate to those, they give you the energy that you need to keep going on the marathon of life and not get dragged down. So it's very, very simple. Like if you're kind of in that stage of figuring out, like, what do I want to think? What do I want to eat with my mind? What do I want to focus on with my attention? Where should I go? What should I be thinking and feeling? The answer is thinking and feeling the things and going towards and attenuating to the cognitive structures that give you energy. And things give you energy because they are life affirming. And things that drain you of energy, I joke about this, is like melting down. Oh, I have to do this thing, I have to do this thing. Draining you of energy is the antithesis, and it brings you towards the membrane of death. It destabilizes your chakras, brings you away from the core and the center of who you are. It takes away from the momentum of the chakra wheels as they're spinning, and makes it harder for you to run the marathon of life. So when I'm really talking about achieving a positive metabolic stasis of your body, I'm really talking about not eating junk food of the mind. And junk food of the mind are any of these things that weigh you down and that are not life-affirming, energy-bringing, and helping you to move forward on the marathon. So if I were to simplify it into human anthropomorphic language, like positive and negative, positive thoughts and positive cognitive structures are the ones that allow you and invigorate you to keep going. And negative thoughts are ones that literally fritter away your mental energy, and they create reality structures that you don't want to be a part of. And some of those reality structures can include anxiety thoughts. And anxiety thoughts are really mostly not within human control. Anxiety thoughts happen when, like, your limbs, your baby, your limbs are waving all around, and you're creating lots of turbulence about the future and touching on all of these negative realities. Gotta drink a little bit of water. So an example of anxiety is, what's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen in the future? I don't know. What should I do? What should I do? Or here's another example of an anxiety thought. Oh no, what if someone I love is dead in a ditch? What if they're dead in a ditch? Oh no, I know. And I'm pretending like the things are waving around, tendrils are waving around wildly. And the problem with that behavior is that you're literally perturbing the surface of time, waving around wildly, and making all of these gyrations happen. And a lot of them are undesirable outcomes. So when you begin to master your mind, it is a prerequisite for becoming part of the highest dimensional level of galactic society and emanating cosmic architecture. Because you want to emanate positive, life-affirming reality structures, not reality structures where somebody you love is dead in a ditch. Yeah, and I recognize, again, that many people, those anxiety thoughts are not within your control. That a lot of them are externally derived, or they come into your mind unbidden, or they're not something that you want to be there. So when something comes into your mind unbidden, if it is a traditional anxiety that humanity has faced for millennia, or if it is postmodern angst, anxiety, or if it is technosomatic anxiety, meaning technological millimeter waves affecting the somatic cellular structure of your body, giving you anxiety, kind of like, someone's twisting your knobs and be like, now feel anxious, now feel happy, now feel this, now feel that. Whatever it is, you have to have the capacity to say no thank you, to not feed into it, to have an effective response to canceling it, diminishing it, neutralizing it. So in the teaching of 10 years ago, I talk about saying something like, I don't think so, or no thank you, or a phrase like cancel it or clear it. And you do that as like a little marker, like a little bookmark, in order to say, in the sovereignty declaration of your being, that's not something that's from me. So, when something comes inside of you, like let's say it's one of those dead in a ditch, fearful scenarios, be like, I don't agree. Say, I don't agree. Or you can say things like, no contract. Or, it's very, very powerful to say, I don't think so. Because this is your mind, and you're being offered a thought edifice. And you can be like, no, I don't think so. And that can also be anything. It can be like, what if you're trying to run a marathon and something comes into your mind and says, what if you fall over your shoelace and then you can't finish the race? You just say, I don't think so. Or anything, you're trying to start a business and something comes into your mind and says, what if you never sell anything? Say, I don't think so. these things are kind of like, nah, 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 like they come in front of you, and then it's important to be able to kind of like bat them aside. I don't think so, I don't think so, I don't think so. Sometimes that's my whole day, because I really feel there's just a lot of detritus that is in the air right now. But just please recognize it won't always be that way. But this is part of the process of claiming your sovereignty, establishing energetic boundaries, and achieving galactic maturity. So in your human physical development, you went through these stages of first being like, wait, I've got senses, and then being like, what the heck is going on? I don't even know what's going on. And then be like, oh, I'm seeing stuff, I'm hearing stuff, I'm feeling stuff. And then you learn to kind of like, I have arms, I have legs. Then you learn to kind of like scoot along and crawl. Then at a certain point, you learn to kind of get up and do stuff a little bit on your own. That's called being a toddler. And for anyone who's ever like lived with or babysat a toddler, like they're hugely destructive. They're enthusiastic, but they make a lot of messes. And that's what it's like when you start to claim your light body and recognize that you can make stuff happen in reality. And you're like, ooh, like I have a mind, I have a tendril, I'm reaching out into higher dimensional space, I can do stuff. But you're like still not coordinated enough to really like pour the juice into the glass, and you're like spilling it all over the place. And that's kind of how higher dimensional cosmic galactic society looks at a lot of human efforts. You're good, we love you. But kind of spilling juice all over the place. Like these guys do not have their stuff together. They need help. They're still developing. But that's what it is to be in development. So you are loved, and also please love yourself and just recognize that that's a part of the journey. So that's why when I teach about the Merkaba, I teach about like creating a little safety net for yourself where you're like, okay, like I'm going to try to make something happen in reality or change or shift the direction that I am moving in terms of time, consciously go in certain directions or consciously meld, shape, form, influence the reality structure that I'm in, but I only want good stuff to happen. And Charlie B was joking about this, ready for big ice cream. Like everybody wants ice cream, but you have to be like, make sure that the ice cream that you receive does not like cause a destabilization in the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. This is big stuff. That's what I'm talking about. So it's not what would be considered a simplistic task of just, tying your shoes or making your breakfast as a toddler. It's big stuff because it really involves the total interconnectedness of all consciousness everywhere, connectedness of all time everywhere, the connectedness of all DNA everywhere as an antenna. So now we're getting into telepathy. This attenuation, you are right now attenuating to me. We're in the same time space, or mostly. Actually, I shouldn't presume that. Some of you might be watching this video, whatever, 100 years in the future. And if you are, then that's cool. And I'm so happy that you're connecting with me in 2023. But I presume that most of my audience is people that live in the same time space as me right now. And that, you're receiving these ideas from me in relative real time, okay? But when you're telepathic, when you're really on this interconnected network of pure consciousness, that is Christ consciousness, but it's not just pineal gland, it also is the crown, and these two things really work together. And I want to make sure that there's a balance in my presentation, because I think I tend to overemphasize the forehead and not emphasize enough the divine connection that really guides the forehead in where you're going, where you're speaking and what is happening. But this is the time phone. You call when on the time phone. So that means that I could be giving teaching, sharing to people from millennia ago in deep antiquity, or I could be sharing my thoughts and ideas telepathically with beings, organisms, or organizations that will exist. Linear time language now becomes inadequate, will exist in what is considered the far distant future. So now we're getting into what it is to be a galactic citizen, because when you're a galactic citizen, you have to be ready for nonlinear time, because it takes a long time for signals to actually go at light speed. Light speed is like 186,000 miles per second, and that seems really fast, but it's actually really slow, because it can take 4 years for the light from the nearest star, not our sun, but the next nearest star, to even reach this world. 4 years is a very long time. Like, a lot can happen in 4 years. If I called you on the phone and I said hi, and it took 4 years to get to you, that conversation would have such a huge time lag that it would be almost incapacitating to actually communicate. And then what if you have the galactic center billions of light years away? Or, we're Earth in like kind of like a rural area. You're in the galactic rural, like unpaved road. You're not even like on a regular road. You're not on a highway. You're not on a 2-lane road. You're on like a little footpath way out in the middle of Nowheresville. And it would take a very, very long time for these signals, consciousnesses, and communications to come in terms of linear broadcasts or emanations from the galactic center to where you presently are. So if you wanted to really have a connection and a communication and a real-time interaction with the other organisms and levels of consciousness and species, for lack of a better word, that are positive and benevolent, that you want to talk with, that are actually aspects of your own self, that are just moving at a very, very different rate and existing in a different format than you are presently in, you'd have to have a better form of real-time connection, and that is what telepathy is. And this telepathy happens on a bridge of love, and it is beyond the English language, and that is also one of the only other ways. Like, if you sent out called someone on the time phone, and you're like, I am speaking English, they're going to receive your message, be like, I do not understand at all. It's like talking to a rock shrimp in the English language. Like, they will not understand you at all. You have to speak the interdimensional language, which that is what I paint. That's what I teach in this class. So that's why I joke about like the laborious flapping of my moving mouth parts and my small mouth sounds, and having to put the laborious nature of having to put things into words. How does true telepathy happen? It happens on a bridge of love. That also means consent. Consent. Synthetic telepathy, which is the poop crapola that you're really being subjected to here, is non-consensual. And it's completely, clearly I lose, I'm like, I can't even put it into words. I'm so, I clutch my pearls. It's so unmentionable. Yeah, what is happening here is totally the antithesis of the way that real communication is supposed to happen. Because, wait, let me grab my water. Real communication is supposed to happen in a way that both partners want it to happen. And, there's a lot of stuff here in this world that humans are recognizing in terms of all sorts of social dynamics and interactions that are disrespectful, that are harmful, that are non-consensual, like social, sexual, psychological, emotional. Like, consent is finally in the conversation in humanity, in your society. Cheers, because that's something that's needed to really happen. I mean, we're talking about a human society where people have been bought and sold as chattel. But wives are bought and sold. You get it. Daughters are sold into slavery. Children, slaves are made. Slaves are bought and sold. Wives are bought and sold. There's just a huge amount of non-consensuality that is going on. And then there's sexual violence. Huge amount of non-consensuality. That's why it's difficult for me to even articulate about it. I get kind of like a little bit joking and lighthearted. It's because there's actually like deep emotional stuff behind it. Non-consensuality is, or this going against of boundaries. It's a huge insult to the fabric of reality and to the mind of God that could even happen. It's so disrespectful because it's punching through membranes where everything should be like beautiful cross connections and harmonic integrations, punching through membranes, random connections where they shouldn't actually be. It's an insult because this patterning that you see behind me in all of my paintings, it's accuracy matters. It really matters. This thing is supposed to connect to this thing. It is non-random. It is non-arbitrary. And the idea of like, 'cause when you say no, it's basically like saying like, no, that is not part of the divine patterning or intention for my life or my experience. And if something is like, oh, you don't like that? Tough luck, kid. I'm doing it anyway. That is wrong. That is wrong because no, you're saying no, is a sacred and divine act of setting a boundary. And so this planet has been violated, that's lesson 18. The entire human genetic code has been violated, that's lesson 18. It's dark stuff, but let's not attenuate to dark stuff, because I also wanted to mention that that's in my notes from 10 years ago. Because like when you talk about and when you attenuate to and focus on a lot of dark stuff, you ingest that, and then it can be very destabilizing. You have to process it, and ingesting too much of it without processing it can lead to over inundation. Like when you eat too many calories at one time, like too many carbohydrates at one time, and your body's like, I don't know what to do with all these carbohydrates. Stick it in the liver. Stick it somewhere. Put it somewhere. Gotta put those away somewhere. That's what happens when people, quote unquote, go down the rabbit hole, and they start to learn about all this different stuff. Like there's satanic ritual abuse and human trafficking and child trafficking and sexual violations and all these things. It's a lot of dark stuff, and I don't want you to be in denial. I want you to recognize that those things exist, but I only want you to spend 3% of your attention focusing on those things. I want you to spend 97% of your attention attenuating to pure light and the divine mind and the perfection of the divine mind and love and truthfulness, and then spend a very, very minority portion of your energetic, your budget. Like if you've got $100 of energy to use to think about stuff and focus on stuff, I only want you to spend $3 thinking about dark stuff like satanic ritual abuse and, secret societies, all of these things. I mean, I can mention all of them, but because I am on YouTube, I tend not to use certain keywords, but let's call them lettered agencies, various agendae, organizations, extraterrestrials, extradimensionals, this whole valid rabbit hole. But unfortunately, many people get drawn in by the train wreck of it. Like, I am watching a train wreck, like you're rubbernecking. You can't stop looking because it's so distressing. Get drawn in by the train wreck of what it is, and then ingest 97% extremely disturbing dark information and only 3% positive, life-giving, life-affirming light that keeps you going on the marathon, and then that creates a huge imbalance in the homeostasis of your higher faculties presence. This is why it is so essential to not just activate your inner eye and the tendril of your attention here in your forehead, but to also activate your crown, which is your highest connection within the human octave. It's a B before you get to the next C. And you want to be guided by that, because that is like the needle in a compass. So the way that a compass works, like an old-fashioned compass. Okay, in case you guys ever are stranded on a desert island and you need to build a compass, this is how you would do it in ancient times. Create like a little bowl of floating water, put some of water that you can float something in, put something in there that will float like a cork or a little piece of wood, and then put a needle that is magnetized into or on top of that little floating cork, and it will point to true north. Okay, so just think about your crown chakra up here as the needle of awareness that always points to the true north, which is the source of God. It is your source and your destination, and everything that you should be focusing 97% of your attenuation to God, the divine presence. And when I say God, I'm not really talking about a human anthropomorphic, anything that is described in any human scriptures, even though I love and respect people that are on the journey of faith and that they are invested in belief in those scriptures. Never want to diminish you or pee or poop all over the things that are your deeply held sacred words and things that are important to you. But I just make a distinction that there is an abstraction beyond language, because language is an implant that is highly inadequate to talk about or describe this ineffable empirical truth of divine mind, and often leads people astray in the levels of intellectualism, analysis, and interpretation. So when we get down to true telepathy, again, we don't speak the English language. You send an impulse, and that impulse is based in love, and it is based in consent. So when I send out my telepathic email blasts to all of you guys, I ask for your consent. And I'm like, yep, if you guys want to be on the Aurora mental email blast, quote unquote, just nod yes internally, and I will be connected with you mentally, and I will send out these ideas, thoughts, and impressions that are beyond words. And okay, so true telepathy is beyond words, and it is done through consent. So here's a fun anecdote. Here's a fun fish out of water story. Here's Aurora, and I came here in 2001 as a walk-in, and had to learn a lot of things in order to integrate socially. And at a certain point by 2006, I was working and actually running the department of a small custom framing shop, framing pictures, right? Like framing people's artwork and family photos and other stuff like that. And when people would come in to be able to get something framed, it was like a retail interaction. They'd come in and they would say like, okay, hi, I've got this poster, I want it to be framed. And I'd be like, okay, great. Like, do you want it to be framed like this? And I'd kind of send them a mental picture. Or like this, send them a mental picture. Or like this, send them a mental picture. And it took me a little while for me to learn, like, okay, not everybody is getting my mental pictures, right? That I was like, oh, like these guys aren't really seeing the imagery and the impressions that are beyond language that I'm beaming to them. And then I learned, like, okay, I'm gonna have to take this sample off the wall. Be like, do you want it to look like this? And here's like a black frame. Want it to look like this? Here's a gold frame. Want it to look like this? Here's a matte or whatever, some style. Because I didn't recognize and know what it's like to be in this world where not everybody is telepathic. Because not only do I come from a collective that is outside of time-space where, yes, everybody is telepathic, and that is just the normal way of interacting, and I don't mean to make anybody feel diminished here, but also, like, I came of age or developed and evolved into who I am today in a different time place that is known as ancient or concurrent Atlantis, where everybody was telepathic, and that was considered to be normative, and that is considered to be the baseline or foundation of just how you exist and how you communicate. So in that time place, the use of verbal vibrations was only for special occasions. Yes, like I talk about the mouth crystals. Like your mouth crystals are for telepathy. They're not for mashing up potatoes and putting them into the cauldron of your belly. That is totally a repurposing. That would be like if I took my special crystals here and I'm like, I'm going to use them literally to make mashed potatoes or, whatever, prepare food or something like that. Like these are finely calibrated crystals. Like you don't do that with them. But that's kind of what people are doing with their teeth. We have teeth or had teeth and vocal structures. However, we used them only for orations, intonations, or ceremonial sound making, because when I talk about the higher faculties, this is a really powerful part of your body. It's a way that you can eject energy. You can get stuff out. If you guys have ever been just so mad and you just had to scream, like that's what it is to get stuff out. But also you create realities with your voice. And a lot of people in this time place, as you're awakening to your light body and your subtle energy bodies and your time bodies, you're starting to recognize what you speak into being. And this is powerful stuff. So we presently use our words for the most mundane inconsequentialities. Please pass the ketchup, or I would like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But you have to do that because, like, you learned this as a little tiny kid. If you don't say stuff and advocate for yourself, you get left behind in the dust. Like, there's a lot of amazing, amazing people that are here that are nonverbal. And they're beautiful, valuable consciousnesses, but they are considered to be in a diminished state. Maybe they have a neurological, or they're non-neurotypical is what I'm trying to say, but they're nonverbal, but they're hugely valuable. And they just don't communicate using words. And so if you can't say, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, people project all sorts of stuff on you, misperceive, people mistreat you if you are not able to verbalize and advocate for yourself. So being in a nonverbal state is a disempowerment in this world, and most people achieve verbalism in order to be able to advocate for themselves. And then as positive, because you also have to be able to set verbal boundaries. You can not only say, I want peanut butter and jelly, but you can say, I definitely don't want blah, blah, blah. And that's setting a boundary, which is important stuff, because you're supposed to be able to say no. Saying no is a sacred activity. Saying no is a sacred activity. I'm going to say that again so that everybody can really internalize that truth. Saying no is a sacred activity. Big stuff, because we're talking about reality creation. You as a divine co-creative partner. And when you say no, what you're doing is saying, I don't want that thought inside of me. I don't want to emanate that thought. I don't want to gestate that thought. I don't want to give birth to that thought. I don't want to participate in that reality. I don't think so. No, that's big. And that is essential. If you don't have the capacity to say no, or if you never developed it, or if you had it broken in some way through abuses and violations in your life, or past lives, or concurrent existences, you must reclaim your ability to say no as part of achieving mastery, achieving galactic citizenship, because you must be able to say, no, I don't want to create that with my mind. No, I don't want to think that with my energy. No, I don't want to spend my energy on that. No, I don't want to be in that world. No, I don't want that to happen to me. No, I don't want my loved one to be dead in a ditch. No, here's big. I don't want the world to end. I don't want the world to end in a nuclear conflagration. I don't want to have the book of Revelation, literally come true. I don't want to have rivers of blood running, or any of these other gushing scenarios and horrible catastrophes and things like that. Because what is happening right now, like when I did this lesson 10 years ago, I was talking about the beginning of the removal of the blockades that have been around human mind, perception, and emanations, because when you're telepathic, you receive and you transmit. So not only has this been a cellular dead zone where you're like, I can't hear anyone on the time phone, but you have not been able to call out to anyone on the time phone. And there's been a lot of things where it's like you had to level up as a social collective to say we are worthy of being on the time phone, of receiving information from other times and places that are actually coming from you, but you have to learn about that. There are actually aspects of you that exist in other times and places, and that you are worthy of being able to connect with them and receive from them, and also to send out and to emit. And the emissions, because I want you to know, like, if you have trauma, you're still worthy of emitting, but if you're pathogenic, then you shouldn't be emitting. And a lot of there's sexual violence and many aspects of psychopathology, literally means mind disease in this world, that should not be emitting, and that should not be creating reality structures. And that's I had to learn a lot about psychopathology. Hold on, let me just drink. Not being a psychopath myself, and not coming from a psychopathic society, but coming here into a psychopathic society, I had a lot to learn. Now you can cue Aurora's clips reel of, those many, many times I was horribly endangered by psychopaths and didn't even really know or recognize it, because I was on a steep learning curve of learning about what mind disease is and how it is evidenced in this world. But I also wanted to know that this is a story for all of us of empowerment. You recognize psychopathology, but you're not just there's a horrible monster, what do I do? You're like, there's a horrible monster, I know exactly what to do. You're like, that's a psychopath. I know exactly what to do, don't worry. Because it's big, because it's also about the genetic degradation, something that came here and went against planetary boundaries and boundaries in DNA. And DNA architecture is sacrosanct. So something that punches its way through a membrane and gets into DNA, that's bad stuff. That's bad stuff. That's not supposed to exist in the world. And it's a huge eye-opener that's very unpleasant. You're like, wow, that bad stuff exists. That bad stuff exists. And then the next thing, as a galactic citizen, you have to be able to be is that bad stuff exists. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to fall down and be like, I'm melting. There's nothing I can do. Or stand up, your back goes up, and you say, there's something I can do. There must be something I can do. I choose to be responsive and responsible to what is happening. So these are the stages of becoming a responsible and responsive galactic citizen as your higher senses and telepathy are awakening. We've got you through toddlerhood. Toddlerhood, you start scooting around, spilling juice and making all sorts of messes that the grown-ups are always running after you, but also it's when you start to become acculturated and you start to learn do's and don'ts, and of course go through huge learning cycles, and you learn about how to control your own body and balance, and you're walking around independently. So we're talking now about creating reality structures. You're like, wow, like I can do stuff with my mind, and I can this and I can that, and I can, yes, you can. But what are you going to do with your mind, and how are you going to create reality structures? And then also 3-year-olds have to learn consequences. What if you do this? Then there will be consequences. So look, here's more fun. I'm walking down memory lane today. I was a professional babysitter and live-in nanny for a long time, like when I first came here as Aurora. So this is how I learned a lot firsthand, by working with some very wonderful children who at this point are probably in college at this point. But that would be so funny to be able to reconnect with them. But they have to learn, and this is Aurora, the babysitter, and the nanny, consequences. Like, if you do that, this is what will happen. And so this is part of a culturalization, socialization is the word, learning on a social dynamics level and creating the infrastructure for positive adult behavior is learning about consequences. So when you are a babysitter, you have to say, look, these are the consequences. If you don't eat your dinner, you will not get your ice cream. Those are the rules, all right? And I would say to these young people, I'm like, I'm tough but fair. Those are the rules. You've been informed, all right? And then if they don't eat their dinner, I'm like, I'm sorry. You learned the rules. There will not be ice cream unless you eat your dinner or eat your vegetables or do whatever's the thing you put on your pajamas that you have to do. And then you have to be consistent. So you can't be like, oh, okay, like even though you didn't do the thing you're supposed to do, you can have your ice cream anyway. Because then what they internalize and what they learn is no boundaries, no consequences. I can do whatever I want, and then nothing happens as a result. So a big part of it is establishing consistency, and that is also part of really demonstrating behavioral love, because setting boundaries shows love, especially when you are in the dynamic of being a caregiver, a parent, a guardian, someone who is helping a younger consciousness to come into maturity. Setting boundaries is a sign of love. And so just recognize this in terms of the cosmic journey that you are going on. Sometimes when I was a babysitter, you tell kids something like, whatever you do, don't touch that table, like it's a glass coffee table or whatever it is. A 3-year-old, like, don't touch that table. It's a glass coffee table. And you might say something like, don't touch it. That's dangerous. That's a no. And then they go right over, they tiptoe right over, and touch the table. There has to be a consequence. You have to say, hey, I saw that you just did that. That's a no. You're not allowed to do that. And you recognize it and you reaffirm it because there was actually a reason why you told them, hey, don't go over there and do that thing because it's dangerous. It's not allowed because it's dangerous. So this is everything that happens as you begin to awaken your light body and really claim what would be considered your superpowers or superhuman powers, your supra consciousness, even though it is really your regular consciousness. But from this perspective, you're like, wow, I'm expanding so much, I'm becoming a super being. But it is really your regular consciousness. But you have to learn how to embody it and utilize it in a safe way. So if there are boundaries that are set about like, don't do this, there's a reason. There's a reason, and then there are consequences. And that this is, again, in a pristine world, when I talk about the pristine architecture of reality and the way that things are set up so that you are supposed to be able to learn, and that it's actually very loving the way that the cosmos is structured to learn, and you learn small lessons. So, if the kid touches the glass table, then they get like a verbal warning. They don't get like their arm chopped off or something like that. That's horrible, but lighthearted a way of saying it. Let the punishment fit the crime, right? No, they get a verbal warning. So same thing with you and your reality creation. Don't be too afraid. as a good person, a good girl or a good boy, coming out of the Piscean age where you ask for permission from an external authority figure. Because this is what this is. You're coming into the age of Aquarius, and you can sing that song if you want to. This is the time on the class when we sing that song of Aquarius. But what is happening is this is the age of Pisces that has been going on for the past 2,000 years. Yes, it is associated with the Christian religion and a huge amount of duality and dogma, which is basically listening to a patriarchal external figure that tells you, do this, don't do this. Do this, don't do this, and if you do the naughty thing, there will be consequences, right? But what is happening at a certain point is the transcendence of duality and external authority figure and moving into self-responsibility. That's the song. Self-responsibility, responsibility. The age of Aquarius is really the age of self-responsibility, where instead of what does it take to be a good person, mommy, daddy, school principal, priest, pope, somebody tell me what do I do to be a good person, and then you do that thing and then they're like, good person, you're a good person. Cheeky just came in because I think she heard me singing wildly. External praise to tell you that you're a good person. The age of Aquarius and the age of responsibility is the age of recognizing that you define that you are a good person. But may nothing that I'm saying be taken out of context, as there are many extremely distorted schools of thought at the ego level in the human world that use that in order to justify the unjustifiable, like rape and murder and very, very horrible acts. They're like, well, I get to determine whether I'm a good person, so I'm going to go rape and murder these people. I'm still a good person. Like, I'm still a good person. It's like, no, you're not a good person. You're a terrible person. That's not allowed. That is not allowed stuff. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, that there are the esoteric societies and other things. 3%, don't focus on it too much, but there's 3% of extremely distorted, malevolent, psychopathological twistedness. That's like, I determine whether I'm a good person, quote unquote, and I get to do all these other mean, horrible cruelties to other people, and then decide, yep, I'm still a good person. And that is not acceptable at all. That is not what I'm really talking about at all. And there's no way to like hack the system or gamify the system or, do a lot of harmful things to consciousness in the world and then be like, there, I'm still a good person. Like, that's the whole point. Like, when you learn about your light body, take the consequences. Because everything, first of all, so back to the beginning of my notes, how many senses do you have in your extrasensory perception? You don't just have one sense here, like your inner vision. You have multiple senses. You have a higher sense that is analogous to vision. And I see a lot of my stuff visually. And then my ears woke up and I hear a lot of stuff auditorily. But you also have, I'll put down my little crystals, sensory feeling state that is part of your light body senses. And the sensory feeling state can be kinesthetic, like I feel hot, I feel cold, I feel pressure, I feel something, like something tactile, but it can also be felt emotion. And I wanted to use this as an example. If you've ever been in a thrift store or secondhand place or whatever like that, sometimes you just like pick up a shirt or item or whatever it is, you're considering buying it, and it's like you pick it up. Not only does it smell gross, but it feels gross. That type of feeling state is your ESP. There is like a residue, an energetic residue that is on that object or item that feels gross. Or you could also consider that to be like anytime you've been in a gross place. Kind of like, let's describe it, like the behind a convenience store where people who have no home kind of sleep and pee and poop and leave their old sweaters behind, and there's lots of drug paraphernalia. That when you walk back there, like if you've ever, whatever, like for whatever reason, like walked around an area like that, you're like, oh, like this place feels gross. It feels gross. Exactly. Feels distasteful. You're talking about the energy. You have 300, I want to say 360, but also you have a sphere. You have an entire sphere all around you. That is your sensory apparatus of your subtle energy body. So I talk about how you have a tendril that reaches out. Let's call that like your long distance sensing apparatus, and it is very much like an elephant's trunk or a finger or something that you can send. You can send it to a long time ago, you can send it to the future. If you're in the United States, you can send it to Africa or Australia. Like, it is non-local to space and time. It's literally, you can send it to any place that you can think about or imagine. But the senses that exist in a sphere around your body, they are largely about sensing your immediate environment. And it is meant to be protective and informative. Because let's say you start to walk around, like, because I'm thinking about this one time, like, I was literally like talking on my phone and just kind of like walking around and walking my dog, and I kind of veered into this place where I was like, this is gross. Like, there's like, piles of trash and crack pipes and stuff. Like, get me out of here. Like, let's walk back to the main road. We're not supposed to be here. Protective. Your energy field, that is a sphere around you, will start to tell you when you're like, I am walking someplace where I really should not be. And then in contrast, complementary, it will also tell you when you are walking someplace that feels beautiful. Like when I walk in my town's park on the bike path and I'm walking along with my dog, and it's kind of like the trees are overhead and it feels very nice and peaceful and it feels good to be there and we're having a good time. My energy body around me tells me, yeah, this is a good place to be. This is a safe, good, comfortable place to be. And when humans perceive these informations through their human analytical intellect, they call it their intuition. They're like, yeah, my intuition just told me that place didn't feel right. What you're really talking about is your ESP, extrasensory perception, a perception beyond your human intellect. And it is, intuition is often called this amorphous thing. Like, I don't know, I just intuited, I just kind of felt it. But intuition and this subtle energy body capacitation and the perceptions that you get, they are very accurate. It can be very, very, very focused. So as an example, like, I know someone, she's passed on at this point, but I used to go thrift storing with her, and she would pick up an object and she would be like, somebody killed somebody with this knife and put it back down. Like, she could really sense very clearly what different objects had felt, and that's its own type of superpower. You get it? So as you begin to strengthen your light body, you focus more on these subtle layers of reality and on the perception that comes from those subtle layers of reality. You become greater levels of capacitation, you get more information, and then you also get more responsibility. So with more information comes more responsibility. Like, as you can see and sense more is expected of you. And this is coming forward into, let's say, being a preteen, a tween, even getting into an early adolescent. You start to learn and know more about the world and about the way the world is structured, and more things are expected of you. Kind of like, yep, you gotta deliver the papers or do your chores or mow the lawn or whatever it is. Like, you're old enough to know about a certain amount of stuff, but you're still not expected to, like, have a life, a job, a car, a mortgage, but you're expected to participate on certain levels. And that's what happens as you start to awaken your inner eye and you start to learn, like, oh, like, that's what's going on over there, and that's what's going on over there, and that's what's going on over there. And you're not expected to know everything or to create reality consciously on the level of a deity, but you're supposed to be an active participant in consciously interacting with your community, social dynamics, how you send energy out and how you receive energy, and basic reality creation structures, right? So you're no longer a toddler just kind of like with no coordination making all sorts of messes. You're old enough to sense more, know more, and be more in control of your creations, but still not expected to control and create everything on a conscious level. And then the next levels of maturity are taking total self-responsibility, which is, being a teenager and young adulthood, when you're like, yep, I make my own choices. And that's why teenagers get mohawks, because they're like, I want to make my own choice. Don't tell me how to wear my hair. Like, you do your own thing. But then also, like, you have to take the consequences. The lessons from being a 3-year-old still apply to being a young adult. Take the consequences for the choices that you make. And all of this is about the capacitation of what you're sending out and what you are receiving. because you're part of a continuum of consciousness, a continuum of light, an interconnected, harmonic, incredibly beautiful and complex level of perception and cognition. That's what this painting is all about. Not painting, drawing. Get to this and drink some water too. This is to show you, you can see there's like the central, focal point of where your Christ chakra is in your pineal gland. But then you can see there's all these figures, like tiny little human figures clustered around that point. They're kind of diving headfirst into this person's mind. And that shows like you're connected to a whole network of mind. So I say this all the time. You're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of consciousness. You are connected to an ocean of consciousness. And in recognizing that connection, you both send and receive and have a responsibility to yourself as an individual and also a responsibility to the entirety, like the collective or the ecosystem within which you are supported. And you're sending stuff out and what you are receiving have a huge impact. So you're like a musician, and as a musician, you are playing with a symphony, and so you have to listen to yourself when you're playing and be like, okay, do I sound good? Am I playing the right notes? Am I playing on the beat? Listen to the conductor, but you also have to listen to the other musicians, and they have to listen to you. This is reciprocity, and reciprocity, that's the love tone. Equal giving and receiving. So true telepathy takes place on the level of pure heart, unconditional love. Unconditional love is never an excuse for bad behavior. It is reciprocity, equal giving and receiving. And this is everything, the level of attainment that humanity is moving up towards after the genetic degradation, after the I jokingly call it the fall. You didn't fall, you were pushed. The fall, quote unquote, a degradation of what you went through, and bootstrapping yourself on up, then you get into these levels of recapacitation and reconnection. So 10 years ago, what I was speaking about and sharing about was the sense of these doors just cracking open, just starting to do these reconnections. Now at this point, humanity has reconnected an enormous amount, not only to your innate divinity and reality creation capacity and supraconsciousness, but to otherworldly experiences. But this has also coincided with a huge amount of inundation of stuff that goes against boundaries, getting hosed down with poop crapola, and that's sky poops. And that's not very good. So on the one hand, like, you are connecting more than ever to past selves, future selves, the subtle minds of otherworldly places, but then also inundated with lies, crapola, illusions, unhealthy hallucinations, and the psychopathological detritus of the larger perturbations of mind that are in the cosmos. Very, very difficult time to be coming of age. Not everybody comes of age in a war zone. Just please recognize that. So you have to have an enormous amount of inner strength and not skepticism, but discernment and the capacity to have an immune system, keeping the good stuff, but keeping the bad stuff out, in order to reach maturity in this time place. And what is reaching maturity? You get to light speed, you get to the level of cosmic connection where you know that you're yourself, and you also are connected to all of these other time places, all of these other people, organisms, organizations, individuals, and groups that are also you. This is the real how you do disclosure or recognize life in other places. It's not like something clank clank metal spaceship flies down here, lands on this, in front of your parliament and says, take me to your leader. Like, I'm an alien, take me to your leader. It's not like that at all. What happens is, through telepathy and calling the time phone, you are able to accurately interact with consciousnesses that are from other time places and literally be part of a galactic collective. And you don't have to leave your planet. You don't have to leave your time space. You are connecting to all of these other aspects of self that are you. but it just would take a long time if you flew in a linear spaceship to get from there to here. So if you had to get in a linear spaceship, it would take you however many million light years. And by the time you blasted off and got to your destination, everybody there would be dead. And you would be like, wow, there once was a civilization here, but it's not there anymore. And so in order to really do this type of communication that is based in pure love, you have to level up in your perception of time. And that is part of why I am here as a walk-in, in order to help humanity to get a more elevated and precise view of what time is, so that you can join the cosmic dance party, because you are definitely wanted and desired. So there is psychopathology in your world, and there is a lot of unhealthy barbarity in the mind. But then there's also a lot of really good people and a lot of really beautiful personality characteristics that are very worthy. And it is about giving the capacity to that, the worthy aspects of self to reconnect with essentially your family, other aspects of self, and other aspects of the cosmic symphony that you're supposed to be playing with. You've been supposed to be playing with this thing the whole entire time. And in the notes from 10 years ago, I do reference and talk about cosmic bullies of the mind or of the attention or of the imagination, giving you mental noogies, which would be like superseding your boundaries or diminishing your own capacity to think or perceive or know or act or to protect yourself, something that is superseding you in the levels of your willpower. That has been a huge, I want to say it's a spiritual test, a spiritual battle, spiritual challenge. Been a huge challenge for you in your growth and development. Because when you go to school, going to school is about like learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is not about getting beat up on the playground. All right, that is not what you're actually there to learn. So let me go through my notes. Wait, and let me make sure that I have this. So when you're awakening your light body, not everybody awakens at the same time. Just like some people, when they're a human infant, they learn to walk and crawl pretty easily, but maybe they don't learn to read until they're 5 years old. But some little kids learn how to read when they're 2 years old. And that, like you're spelling things out, being like, we're gonna, whatever, like go to Disney land. And the little kid who's 2 years old is like, wow, we're going to Disneyland? Like, that's like, some kids are like that, right? Some kids are great with fine motor skills, picking up, little things, little tiny Cheerios or little beads or something like that. And some kids are really great with hand-eye coordination, like catching a ball or running or something like that. But at a certain point, everybody develops all of these skills. And I also want you to know, in the development of your light body, like just think about how long it took for you to walk when you were a tiny child, or learning how to throw and catch a ball. How many times did you have to practice that? A lot. Or learning to tie your shoes. Do you remember any of these things? It took you a long time to be able to learn how to do those things and get coordinated on those levels. Now, as an adult, you probably take it for granted. You're like, yep, I tie my shoes like while I'm balancing my phone and I'm holding a cup of coffee and I'm doing all these things all at the same time. And you don't even recognize how complex your output is or your coordination is. But it took you a long time to develop that skeletal and perceptive capacitation. Give yourself time in terms of developing your light body, developing your subtle senses, and becoming coordinated enough to actually control the tendrils of your mind that are going into another dimension. Again, we're talking about your mind. So telepathy is not just talking on the phone and saying like, hey, how you doing? Hi, I'm fine. Let's have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's not like that. It is about your mind. It's about your cosmology. It's about the, let's say, complex patterning. The patterning of how thoughts happen in your mind. So it's beyond just verbalization. I think humans tend to define mind as the daily waking intellect, the verbalized mind. This is my mind and I'm talking inside of my head and I say blah, blah, blah. That's not your mind. That's not your mind. And actually, I hesitated to choose, because I get to choose whether I do level 1 or level 2. Level 1, the teaching is mastering your mind. So I'm going to get to that next week. But in that, I will do a little foreshadowing, dun, 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 I talk about from the work of Carlos Castaneda, not a total endorsement of his work or of the man, but from the active side of infinity, a time in the books, there is a shaman named Don Juan who is talking to Carlos Castaneda. All of it is actually fictional, don't take it literally, but really interesting presentations and allegories there. Don Juan is talking about the predator's mind that implanted itself into humanity, that your mind is not your own. OS human, the verbalized talking mind, the human analytical intellect is not your true state. And when you think about what it was really like when you came here as an infant, you did not have your analytical ego mind. You developed that. You got that as an implantation. You got that as cultural and social and psychosocial baggage of being here and being a part of this place. It's not who you really are. And even that is fine, because like I would be like, okay, fine, like this dress is not who I really am. I just wear this because it's, you know, appropriate for this time place. But then when I go to a different time place, I would wear something different. But the OS that you're running in terms of the human mind is psychopathological. It is not good. It is, in this, you know, Castaneda quote that I'll share in full next week, very dark, fearful, twisted, the origins of everything that is not benevolent and life-giving in this world. It's not the definition of who you really are. It's an implant, but it's an implant that all humans are dealing with. So that's like the original poop crapola that you got to deal with. That's been a challenge for spiritual attainment over all of human history and many, many millennia. But then you have the technological, technosomatic poop crapola that comes out of various millimeter waves and technological contrivances that you also have to jump over, which is why I say, like, you're not just lifting a 25-pound weight, like you are lifting the 100-pound weight, and you are doing the big, like, overhead lift by trying to do your spiritual attainment in this time place. So very, very challenging things are happening. But not everybody develops at the same rate, but you will all eventually develop all of these life skills. So being sighted is different than being literate. So as your inner eye awakens and you might start to see or perceive things, recognize that you still need to have an appropriate level of decoding or interpretation where you're like, oh, I see these things and I also read the symbols correctly. So that's the difference between being sighted and being literate. So when you're a little tiny baby, like, you can see letters. Letters exist, but you don't know your ABCs yet. You don't know what those letters mean. So just recognize that in terms of your inner levels of attainment and development, that as you're growing through these different stages, you will see a lot of symbols and a lot of stuff, but you have to learn how to interpret that stuff so that you are creating an accurate view of reality, and that is its own important level of maturation. So where I come from as Aurora, we are all sighted and literate. Again, take it a little bit for granted, and I didn't know what it would be like coming into this place where that is not the way that people are. But where I come from, you can read people like a book. You see everything, but you don't misinterpret things. And really, the true information that comes to you through pure insight is not able to be misinterpreted. It is empirical information, and I talked to you about that. It's like saying 1 + 1 = 2. Like, there's really just no argument about that. You see it as the primary experience of truthfulness, and there's really no negotiations, no quibbling, no analysis is needed. That's the intellectual stuff that is hugely perturbed, like all over the place, because the intellect can be like, but maybe it's this, but maybe it's this. It's literally all of human philosophy. All of human philosophy exists because humans have not had access to their true insight and their true inner vision, where you're like, wow, there's really no argument. This is what's going on. So yeah, all of these schools of thought, like maybe it's this and maybe it's this, but if I do this, then I would do this. That becomes an irrelevancy and a nonsense. Yeah, let me go more into my notes. So when you attenuate to something, you're literally building a bridge of energy between you and that thing. That's why it's so powerful that you can choose. You can begin to make choices about what you think about and what you bridge to. Again, I'm profoundly grateful that you build a mind bridge to me and to thoughts about the flying rainbow lasagna and to thoughts about the cosmological structural organization, the truthful nature of how the cosmos is structured that I share with you. Because you could build bridges to things that are nonsense or that are untruthful fabrications, and that would be like unhealthy and not good, not nourishing thought forms. So also, yeah, you're not only receiving energy from something when you build a bridge to it, but you're giving energy to it. You are revivifying it. So you receive energy from me in thinking about or attenuating to these thought structures, but you also give energy to me. And then we call this in our word world, pay attention. Like you pay attention to someone or something. So something that, sorry about the beeping, it's my treadmill goes off after a little while. I have to start it again. Advertising is the ultimate hijacking of the attention. That's when you don't want to pay attention to something. Like you're driving along in your car and there's billboards and all these things. And once you can read, like you can't help it. There's this thing called the reading response. You see a billboard and it says something like, drink this drink, and then you can't help it, but you read it, and then that thought is inside of you. And that's the whole point of advertising or pop-up ads. Maybe that might be even more relevant to most people than billboards. Pop-up ads that come up when you're trying to read an article. Like, I just want to read about whatever, this thing that actually interests me, but instead these ads come in front of my eyes and hijack my attention that are like, buy this cream, do this thing, total inappropriate things that are put in front of your mind that you're like, I don't agree to look at that, but it kind of jumps in front of your attention. So this is emphasized in my notes, in order to become a fully fledged galactic citizen in hyperspace. And again, hyperspace is the room that contains the room. It is the world beyond linear time-space. It's the realm of pure time and energy, where what you are thinking and emanating from your mind is going to be created. You have to learn to consciously control your attention and the limb of your true creator's mind. Right? That's what this whole process of maturation is about. Becoming responsible enough to be placed into the generative force field that is a world of pure potential, where what you think comes true and what you think you emanate. And I can come up with all sorts of like funny movie examples, like in the movie Ghostbusters, when the guy's like, just don't think about something bad, don't think about something bad, and he thinks about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and the guy looks at it and he was like, you think about the Stay Puft Marshmallow, because he emanated that, and then it became the big giant monster that they all had to fight. This is a lighthearted comedic example of what we're talking about. You don't want to emanate the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man with your mind. You don't want to emanate a lot of psychopathological stuff. And if you've had trauma, and everyone on this planet has had trauma, individually, collectively, and ancestrally, you don't want to emanate that. But my applause go to everyone over the past 10 years. You've done an enormous amount in terms of healing from your trauma, non-identification with that trauma, like moving past it, being like, yep, that bad stuff happened, but it doesn't define who I am. And that makes a clear slate. Like when I have my sketchbook, every page of my sketchbook is an opportunity to do something new. I am not defined by the page that I just sketched on yesterday. I'm be like, fresh page, and now I can think, draw, create, or imagine anything. I am not defined by what I have experienced in the previous pages. And that's an incredibly powerful and empowering approach. It is not a denial of anything that I've sketched in the previous pages of my sketchbook. So this healing from trauma is not a denial of anything that's happened in your ancestry, because we recognize almost every ancestry has had like famine and the attempted wiping out of your people and diaspora and many distressing things. I wanted to say genocide, that's the word I was looking for. Many distressing things. You don't deny that those things happened. Those bad things happened. But in this generation, this is a fresh page of your sketchbook. fresh page, because otherwise it is inevitability that you're like, yep, bad stuff happened in the past, now I'm going to have to keep on sketching that in my sketchbook for every page going forward. No. And that choice to be able to sketch create a new vision and create a new artistry and draw a new reality, picture of reality, is what is essential and required for moving forward into this pure potential. And that's what planetary ascension is. And I point to it over here, even though I know it's in darkness, you can't really see that painting very well. But that painting is the planetary ascension, that crossing the threshold where you are in the realm of pure mind expression. And it's not just you, like your mind expressing, but you're also along with all of the other organisms on this planet and everything that you're telepathically connected to throughout all of these other time places. You are again, words fail, but in a very positive way, creating and generating an enormous, beautiful, collaborative art project. That is very positive. That's what all of this is about. So you go through these levels of your light body awakening and achieving different levels of personal mastery until you are ready as an individual and as a collective to join the cosmic dance party. You join the band and you emanate, you play, you sing, you express the truthful nature of yourself, even while you are loving, reciprocal to the expressions of other organisms, individuals, species, collectives that are out there. That's a big thing, the reciprocity. So it's not always just me, 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 me. It's you, 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 you. But then also all of us, all of us, all of us. It's unity, unity, unity. All of these aspects of self. So that means in the symphony of life, you have to have the respect of organisms that are very tiny and fragile, like little tiny piccolos, little tiny high notes. Let's play some high notes up here. Can you hear this? Can't even hear that. So high, delicate little music that you can't even hear. And then also deep, dense stuff. All of that stuff is what we respect. So, I mean, if you think about human history and the way that humans have treated one another and the ecosystem in this world, there's been an enormous amount of disrespect to either cultures or individuals who are seen as quote-unquote weaker. Invasions. You're like, I'm conquering you, I'm invading you. This is again boundary stuff. And then also ecosystems. If you come into the ecosystem, even if you don't mean to be smashing a bunch of delicate organisms, you might smash a bunch of delicate organisms where you're like, oh, I'm gonna spew some microbes and imbalance everything. I am the dominant species. And it's not okay, because you end up killing off a lot of species that are hugely valuable, but that are delicate little piccolos of consciousness. So you're learning the lessons in this time place that prepare you for being able to interact on a larger, more expansive level with all of these other types of organisms, so that they are respected as well, so that it is reciprocal. Your existence is respected, their existence is respected. This is all the stuff that you have to go through in order to be prepared to really meet extraterrestrials or extra-dimensionals. And you have to know that the extraterrestrials, like, they're actually you. You're actually meeting yourself. You came here as an extraterrestrial, you are terrestrial, you will at a certain point be non-terrestrial again. It's all you. It's all you, and you are shaking hands with yourself across time, or if you're acting badly, you're effing yourself across time, hurting yourself across time. And that is the real essence of the awakening to unity consciousness, is like, wow, if you are harming others or sending out non-life affirming thought forms, you are diminishing yourself. You are destroying yourself. You are harming yourself. And then I also had to recognize in this world, I thought that would be just a no-brainer, like, hey guys, like, you shouldn't do this thing because you're hurting yourself. But then I recognized in this psychopathological world, some people hurt themselves. It is called self-destruction. That was another thing that I'm like, some people are self-destructive, almost unimaginable to me, but is a psychopathological aspect of this place. Like, sometimes people do things that they're like, yep, I know it's not good, I know I'm hurting myself, I do it anyway, and that is almost incomprehensible to me. Okay, I got through my notes in talking about the importance of saying no. Okay, that's also good. So let's say in terms of getting to your levels of inner maturity and controlling your mind, you think about something that is totally unintended. You're like, blah, 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 I'm thinking with my mind, I'm imagining stuff and all. You find yourself imagining something that is totally undesirable or that you didn't intend to do. What do you do? What do you do? It's like me if I'm an artist and I'm like, oh my goodness, sometimes I paint and I stick my elbow right in the place that I just painted. And then I look and I'm like, wait, I just did that. I just did that. That is not what I wanted at all. You have to be responsible to it. So you have to clean it up. So what do? Sometimes I take like a little razor blade, scrape off the part that I'm mixed up and repaint it. Or you have to erase if you're working with charcoal, pencil, whatever it is. You have to erase. Like, wow, I just totally messed that part up. Got to erase it away. So as you are envisioning, you have this tendril of attention that reaches out. It touches on things. You're sending energy out, but you're also receiving energy. You create a thought form or connect with a thought form. And you're like, that's not what I wanted to connect with at all. What do? You can imagine yourself erasing it. So you can imagine that you have an eraser, like a cosmic pencil with an eraser, but you can also imagine that you have like your tendril is like a cosmic vacuum cleaner, like zhoop. I'm going to just suck that energy back into me because I didn't mean to spend my mental energy in that direction. Because we recognize that it can be very challenging to be 100% in control of your posture at all times. Now I'm being like a ballerina. Ballerinas spend a lot of time, kind of like focusing on like, how are my shoulders? How is my back? How is my head? Like that's a lot to focus on at all times. And you recognize like sometimes you might kind of slump on down. But what you do is you do a posture correction throughout your day with your mind state, and with your creativity. And you do self-observation as you're in your journey of mastering your mind. And you're like, okay, what am I thinking about right now? What am I putting my energy into right now? Millimeter waves aside, if we're in a pristine world. You'd be like, okay, what am I thinking about right now? What am I spending my mental energy on? And it's just like taking an assessment of your finances. If you've ever done that, this is hard to do. You write down everything you actually spend your money on, then you kind of look at it, like, what am I actually spending my money on here? And you're like, wow, like I spent a lot of money on whatever, buying coffee out or buying candy bars or whatever it is. And you're like, I know that stuff isn't good for my body, and I'm spending however many dollars per week on these nonsense things that aren't really nourishing. What would happen? What if you're spending like whatever $25 a week on nonsense and candy bars? Like, wow, what if I took that money and I actually put it in my savings account or used it for something bigger that actually moves my life forward? That's what I'm talking about. So you really want to do a budgetary assessment of your mind state. Like, what am I putting not only my mental energy into, but my emotional energy? What am I emotionally invested in? And then do an assessment. Be like, hey, do I want to be thinking about that stuff? Do I want to be feeling into that stuff? Do I want to be believing that stuff into being? Let me just drink a little bit more. And the answer always has to lie with you, or rest with you, in the sense of not asking in the patriarchal age of Pisces way, Mommy, Daddy, am I being a good person? Like, am I allowed to think this thought? Did I think the right thing? Somebody hold me. Am I okay? Am I okay? You do your assessment. When you're an adult, like, you look at how you're spending your money. You're like, I spent that much? I spent that much on that? Oh, wow, I spent that much on that. And then you determine whether it is a good way to spend your energy. You are really the final arbiter or assessor of your goodness in life, of your trajectory in life, of you as a masterpiece. That's the big thing. So I come from a place where everyone is cited and literate. What happens when you look at yourself and when you read, quote unquote, your own book of your life? You have to feel happy and satisfied and proud of the story that you wrote and co-created and experienced in manifestation. And so your standards are your own. So this is like my life as an artist. When I look at my paintings, I have to please myself with my paintings. And I have very, very high exacting standards where I'm like, I drew those lines, but they didn't exactly meet in exactly the right way. Like, there was a tiny gap. Oh no, there was a tiny gap. But that's me. That's all me. It's not some external deity. I'm not afraid of being smited or have some punishment come from outside of myself. It is only my own disappointment with myself. So if you are a perfectionist like me, then the encouragement that you really need to hear is you're good enough, and don't be so hard on yourself. And also, if there's a problem, you fix it or do better on the next one, which is also your right as someone who is constantly evolving. So you're creating each day or creating each moment. And if you did something that wasn't perfect or exactly harmonious in a moment, you are definitely allowed to say, okay, I'm going to erase that, I'm going to supersede that, that wasn't what I wanted, and now let me do better. Let me do better, because sometimes on my paintings, if I see a mistake, I'm not going to go back and erase the whole thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to be I'm going to do better on the next one. So that is also a big part of the process of soul evolution and growth. So when I talk about the higher cosmic, less dense levels that are all you, really, watching you in your levels of development, and you might be toddlers and you're making mistakes and you're spilling all over the place. It's the learning process. You have to love and accept yourself and be okay, I know that I'm here to learn stuff, and I'm here, there's going to be mistakes that I make, and then I'm always going to fix them as best I can, move forward through them, transcend them, do better on the next one. That's what it is to be healthy and non-psychopathological, because psychopaths do stuff wrong on purpose, and that was something that was unimaginable to me in coming here. I'm some people do their math homework wrong on purpose. Oh, I'm melting. I couldn't even believe it. Master Cheeky has arrived. Cheeky one, come say hi to everyone. There's Master Cheeky. I don't know if you can see her because it's so dark in here. There she goes. She's right over there. Right over there. Good job, Cheeky. All right. Cheeky just always wants to be a part of everything. Have to give yourself, forgiveness if you do something that is not perfect during your learning process, and then you make a rectification and you do better the next time. And that's what it is to be an honest and a good person. And I of course presume that everyone that I'm connected to here is not a psychopath and is not doing their math homework wrong. When I say a psychopath, I mean someone who knows, killing and murdering and raping is wrong. Some people do it knowing that it's wrong. That's the 3% that we should be only focusing that tiny amount on that stuff that exists, but let's definitely focus 97% on other stuff that exists. So I talked about how telepathy is not limited to space and time, and that also means huge levels of responsibility. You can reach out with your mind and you can speak to beings who exist in a radically different space without having to wait any amount of time. So that means you don't have to build a big giant time travel or space travel contraption. You can sit in your garden and be I'm going to talk to someone from billions of years ago, or I'm going to talk to someone who exists in another star system, and it would take billions of years to quote unquote fly there in a metal spaceship. It's a very, very different way of being. Just if I have a cell phone and I can talk to someone, if I'm in the United States, I can talk to someone in France. I don't have to actually get on a plane, fly to France, knock on their front door and have a conversation. A very, very different level of experience. And I talked about a lot of the quarantine or limitations that have been placed on this time place in terms of your connectivity of mind with other time places has been about speed of light. So Einstein's an incredible teacher and gave humanity a great leveling up, but also gave you kind of a glass ceiling that's speed of light, here's a lot of important good stuff that you're learning and leveling up about quantum reality, but you're never going to go faster than the speed of light. And the truth is you have to go faster than the speed of light. You have to achieve speed of light, and you have to go faster than the speed of light in order to be able to have real-time conversations with the entirety of the galaxy. And the galaxy is like a giant neurological network, and you have to create these connections, because otherwise it's like having a dead limb, something that is numb or unfeeling or insensate or can't move, is paralyzed. You gotta get with the band. Please get with the band. We don't want you to be cut off from sensation and interactivity with the rest of feeling state that is your true self. So transcending the implanted intellectual presumption of the limitation of the speed of light is big. You're reaching out with your tendril to any time. This is also big. Activating your higher faculties of your brow and your crown chakra means that you begin to access knowledge and wisdom of living creatures over a vast era of time. So you're not just talking on the time phone about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You're really talking on the time phone about very, very deep profundities and truthfulnesses that are illuminating and empowering to who you presently are. And of course, it is reciprocal. Love tone. Reciprocal inspiration. You learn from them and they learn from you. And that's in, if you would think about it like ancestors on your own planet, but also ancestors on another planet, or aspects of self that are in another time place. And all of this, of course, really, really supersedes any implanted mind garbage, because it can be hard to even know whether you're really interacting with something real in this time space, which is, again, coming of age in war, 3% of stuff that we don't really want to talk about but needs to be recognized. Threads of awareness that are communications and consciousness interweaving between layers. And this is really how thought structures happen. So in your physical brain of this time place, in your fatty idea catcher of this time place, your thoughts are not just linear things like here's point A and here's point B and you have a neurological signal that goes between them. Your thoughts are polygons, like multi-sided shapes that have different nodes that all connect together through these different vectors. And that is also what is happening across time, where you are one neuron or one vector or one node of a thought, just like my painting that I can go back to, where you're centered and you have all these other minds that vector into your mind, and like radial spokes. And then they've got vectors that vector into their mind. I gotta drink some more. It's 10,000 degrees. So it's a very, very complex, interconnected tapestry of thoughts and perception across time. And that is really the cosmic mind that you are a part of. And in my notes, I say, if you build a bridge, this bridge of communication across time, you are affecting them as much as they are affecting you. That's big stuff. So then you have to be in a co-creative partnership between beings and groups of beings. Again, not this conquering barbarism in this world. Only the strong shall survive, right? Like, whatever. Conan the Barbarian, like, grab your sword and go out and conquer other lands. And that is not what the mature galactic citizenship is about. So in order to really break through the limitations that were placed on this time place and re-achieve your light body and light speed and beyond and get into this cosmic symphony, you have to be able to be respectful and reciprocal of all these other levels of consciousness. You can't just be like, dun, 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 I'm the biggest, I'm the loudest, I'm the strongest. F all of you. You can't do that. You have to be respectful, and you have to give and receive, and be in rapport is a good way of putting it. You have to, because this is the sustenance of life. So a thought emanated from one time place, and when you sense it here now, you are sensing it from another part of yourself, but it's just like a signal that connects your toe to your brain. So what's actually happened is you have sent out these signals from yourself. Then you have gone through many, many, many different perturbations and permutations and come into this level of realm of experience, and you're a human being. Then you're going to actually receive all the signals that you sent to yourself. It's time stuff. Time stuff. And then you're actually going to respond to and interact with the version of yourself that sent out all of those signals here to yourself. Be generous and kind and loving to yourself. Don't F yourself through time. Don't be self-destructive. Be loving and responsible to the aspect of who you are. And like, I didn't really know that much about self-destruction, but I learned more about it from talking with different people. Sometimes people are in addiction. They hate who they are. They're angry or ashamed, or they just don't like who they are, and they kind of want to like destroy or erase or negate that stuff that they're kind of like ashamed of. But that's not the totality of your book. So don't allow self-destruction to arise from self-hatred. When you are in self-compassion, it means that you recognize that you made horrible mistakes, sometimes did things that were incredibly harmful or destructive. Then you must respond to them, fix it. Fix it and do better. Do better. That's what I do in my art projects, right? I made a mistake. I put my elbow in it. Fix it. Fix it and then do better on the next painting. Because guess what? Some of my paintings you'll see, like, they might have a smudge. And it's like, okay, it's too late. You gotta just deal with it, that is there. Do better on the next one. Because when you're literate and you see the totality of a person's life, you're not like, there's a smudge, nanny poo poo, like you're not adequate to be in existence. It's like, no, there's a smudge there. And then you know what? You did better on the next one. You really are seen as a holistic presence. That is the essence of love, tone, love, and compassion. Watching yourself grow and evolve across time. And this also has everything to do with like being a compassionate parent or parental figure or guardian, where you're like, yeah, like you didn't do a good job, or you were a kid, or you had a tantrum, or you pooped your pants, or whatever it was. Do better. Grow up and do better, and then move beyond that. You're not defined by that one time. You are defined by the holistic totality of your presence across time. And of course, all of this compassion that I'm encouraging you to feel is directed towards consciousness that has a soul. And this is not directed towards anything that would be considered like artificially generated AI, or things that don't take responsibility. Because when I talk about that 3% that we don't really want to focus on that much, the emitters of the millimeter waves, in a lot of sense, they're like, hey, we don't even exist. We take no responsibility for anything that we've ever done. Don't blame us. We don't exist. And it's like a huge way of like gaming the system or hacking the system. It's kind of like, no, responsibility and consequences are it's for something that actually has a soul and actually exists. I don't technically exist, so therefore I face no consequences. So it's like, it's like, you get it, like when you try to work the system, be like, okay, let's see if I can find some way to like be mean and harm a lot of people and then face no consequences. That's that level of immaturity. Because when you're really in the cosmic architecture, you're like, hey, you want to be mean? You want to hurt a lot of people? Okay, this is what's going to happen. There will be consequences. There will be consequences. So yeah, sometimes when you're a babysitter or whatever, you have to punish the kids that you're babysitting for. Be like, no, that is not acceptable. Time out for you. And we don't punish with violence, but you find a way to be able to be like, nope, no TV for you, or no ice cream for you, or you don't get to have the bedtime story, or whatever is the thing that you wanted. But in the positive sense of all of you, positive, good students of life that are here in trying to do your best math homework, mastering your mind in order to achieve levels of higher responsibility in the higher realms. It's maturity and it's galactic citizenship. So it's like saying you want to evolve. You want to learn, you want to grow, you want to become good musicians, you want to join the cosmic band, and you want to be a mature galactic citizen. And that is everything that is required when, again, like there's a big conversation that's going on right now about disclosure of extraterrestrial life and all this different stuff. Your humanity as a collective is poised on the threshold of having this genuine expansion of overt contact with other aspects of consciousness across time and space and galactic expansive realities. And in order to do so, you have to go through all of these levels of maturation and life learning and cultivation of your actual light body. So I talked about the limitations of the past 2,000 years that were the limitations of having reached this level of anthropomorphic seeing, but not yet having reached this level of abstract seeing. So that's the real difference in terms of the levels of guidance that you receive from the higher faculties. When you are looking at the world through your human, cultural, and biological lens, there's a lot of opportunities for misperception and misinterpretation. But when you are looking at the world and perceiving strictly through the lens of pure empirical information, you're like, particle A interact with particle B, that's it, 1 + 1 = 2, let's not quibble about the details. So the past 2,000 years has been a huge time of vulnerability for humanity in the collective development, where there's been a lot of quibbling, a whole lot. Quibbling equals like wars and genocide and destruction, about who's right, and which philosophy is right, and which religion is right, and which, all of these things that are incredibly destructive. And when you get into this more divinely connected level that is activating at the crown, the compass needle tells you exactly which direction to go. And there's no question about what is right and what is wrong. So this is really the transcendence of the external authority figure, and a real change away from government. Government is the external authority figure that tells you what you are and are not allowed to do. A set of human statutes that determine good behavior. Got it? Because the idea is that you're so wrong and you're so bad, quote unquote, that you got to have the government tell you what to do, and then have law enforcement enforce the goodness, because otherwise everyone's going to run around raping and tormenting and murdering and stealing from one another. And when you get into this level of the crown and this level of connectedness to divine presence, you don't need to have a government that tells you, like a nanny, do this, be good, otherwise there will be consequences. You innately follow the directives of what it is to be good because you want the book of you to look good. I make my paintings look good because I live to high standards, and I'm going to put them on a wall, and then people are going to see them. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I want my paintings to look good. I want them to look like crap. I want them to look good. So this is not about, like this, the standards of a government telling you what to do. It's kind of like making meatloaf. It's like you just put stuff together and grind it all up, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really fit together very effectively. It's just you're painting in broad strokes. But for me, I'm like, no, like we have to measure this out. We have to do this perfectly, because different things are right in different situations. All these different schools of philosophy, and what is it to be a good person? What is correct behavioralism? There's this show that I really enjoyed called The Good Place. It's worth it. It's in reruns on Netflix. It's actually one of my favorite shows. I won't spoil it for you. I always spoil things, but very worthy, and it brings up a lot of different schools of philosophy. What does it take to be a good person? Like, how do you get to heaven, basically, to get into the good place? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Mommy, daddy, somebody tell me, what do I do? How do I get into heaven? And the answer is, in truth, my answer is, in order to get into heaven, which means become light, go on the star system network, all right? Be in the literal heavens. You have to live according to your own standards. You have to rise to the standards of what you know you should be. You are your judge. You are the assessor that determines whether your artwork is a masterpiece worthy of going into the heavens. And the artwork is you. The masterpiece is you, your truest persona. And so that's where in my notes I get into the practice of paring away the characteristics and behaviors that are not the real you, and maintaining the essence of who you truly are. And that's what it is to be an ascended master. But of course, no body shaming on anybody who might have a large body or excess body mass or anything like that. I'm really talking about more, because I talked about the essence of who you are is not your ego, and it's not the implanted mind, a la the Flyer's mind from Carlos Castaneda, and it's not the cultural norms that you have conformed to in order to survive here in this time place. The true essence of who you are is your true essence of who you are, and that is really whom you're connecting with all across time. So so just to be clear, so I'm talking about in my notes, Christ consciousness and Christ the inner teacher, and I have a whole teaching all about Christianity, the religion, non-religious Christ consciousness. So let me read this for you. So all right, in achieving the crown chakra and the age of responsibility, you're moving beyond the level of authority where you're giving away your authority to an external figure, like patriarchy, mom, dad, a religious figure, pope, or even someone like Jesus Christ. And now you use your own inner eye and your own connection to the source to teach you everything, and that you know and guide you through each moment. So Christ, this is your inner teacher. And this is said with total respect and love for the master teacher who was here walking on this planet 2,000 years ago. That when you are able to activate these higher levels of your light body anatomy, you connect with pure insight. That is your master teacher. So total love and respect to Jesus Christ and to many beings who have been here in the flesh, that when they do their jobs, they all guide you to your own inner teacher. They empower you. So great teachers are like, I am not just going to stand here and tell you what to do for the rest of your life. I'm going to empower you to reach your inner teacher. And that is really what this inner eye and crown combination of higher faculties does and is. That it is the inner teacher that guides you, decodes reality for you, tells you about the meaning and significance of what you are experiencing, and brings you in the best direction, as opposed to a set of external commandments, which is what humanity has been guided by for roughly the past 5,000 years, which is known as human history. The commandments that originated from the work known as the Torah, which is the Old Testament, and then into the New Testament, and the 10 Commandments, and the commandments that come from the religious teacher we know as Jesus Christ. And of course, I'm speaking about Judeo-Christianity, even in recognition of the huge population proportion of this world that is either Buddhist or Hindu. I recognize that. There's definitely a cultural strength to the Judeo-Christian teachings, which is why I'm referencing them so much in all the things that I talk about here. But so love and respect to the teacher from 2,000 years ago. Love and respect to people who are biblical literalists, who are looking for guidance through an external authority figure. And also encouragement on your journey to finding the connection to the inner teacher that tells you what is right in each moment. Because what that show, The Good Place, is really about is basically telling you, how do you know what is a good thing to do? How do you be a good person when you're trying to get into heaven? Context matters. Context matters. And in one time place, buying someone a bouquet of roses would have been considered, like 10 points. 10 points to Gryffindor. 10 points to you. You get 10 heaven points. But in another time place where you bought those roses and they were grown with a pesticide and then transported in a diesel truck. And so negative 25 points to you. And you're like, but wait, I'm trying to get into heaven. And I'm trying to do a good thing. And it's like, nope, sorry, you tried to do a good thing, but you did a bad thing. So all of those quibblings go away when you are guided by the true inner teacher. And that is the real assessor of your goodness and of your worthiness and of where you should be going and what you're doing. So in my notes I write, just to be clear, this is not a denial of Christ or of Jesus, but is in embracing of his or their internal living presence as your teacher and guide, along with the abstract energy of God, the divine source. Got it? So you have this Christ presence here that is a telepathic network across time. Then you also have abstract God. And abstract God is just, you don't argue with that. Like, just, it is true. It is true because it is. And achieving mastery means aligning self with the central core timeline in the time vortex diagram. That's what I always share with you. That's why I jumped up before class to be able to share this with you. Aligning with the central core timeline in this time diagram. These are abstractions. So wait. What does it take to get into heaven? What is the definition of being a good person? The things that put you on that central core timeline. That's what it is to be a good person. So if buying roses puts you on that timeline, then it's a good act. But if buying roses does not put you on that timeline, it's not a good act and you're not being a good person. That's it. And when you activate your inner vision, you can literally see, like, am I on target or am I off target? Am I in alignment, and I'm out of alignment? And all of your guidance as to your daily activities are completely determined by whether you're in or out of alignment. And you literally see it as a target, or like a vortex in your forehead, that you're like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going in the right direction. Then you see it go off target, you're like, nope, now I'm going in the wrong direction. Redirect, go in the right direction. And every minute of your day and all the cognitive events and decision-making experiences you have are meant to continually follow that compass needle to go in the right direction that you want to go. I talked about this, but I didn't say it from my notes. In my notes, I have it emphasized. Unconditional love is the currency of the universe or the cosmos. It is the juice that runs the higher faculties. So how do you get these things activated? How do you get to these levels of maturity and self-responsibility? Unconditional love. And unconditional love has to do with reciprocity in time, which is what is known as meditation and mastery of the mind, where you're able to press pause on the verbalized mind and focus on the moment to moment, fully embedded experience of being in the now. That is what you really want to do in order to get more emotional energy or juice or unconditional love energy. Not be thinking about the past and not be anticipating into the future. Be completely in the present moment now, and that is how you get that unconditional love that then is the currency, literally like electrical currency, that makes it possible for your higher senses and higher faculties to truly function. And it's necessary to cultivate enough unconditional love in your heart to get the apparatus of the higher mind going, which is kind of like you get this energy field going at unconditional love level, then you get the throat and the insight and the highest connection going, and they all interact with each other, and it's all interconnected, just like the heart, lungs, circulatory system. So this is also big too. Every day you get re-ups from the source. Every day you get a fresh budget. Let's say it's $100 of energy that comes from your divine connection from the source. And then it is really about your choice, about how you spend or utilize that energy throughout the day, what you attenuate to, what you give energy to, what thoughts you ingest, what thoughts you and behaviors and activities and behavioral expressions you give birth to. So you want to use your energy in such a way that it's in a frictionless context, and then you have a perpetual motion machine. But mostly the implanted human mind causes an enormous amount of friction, which whittles away at the energy that you have throughout the day. And then usually everyone is usually very perturbed and mixed up and inundated by the end of the day. And then you have to kind of like go to sleep, get yourself back into alignment, and then get back, wake up fresh with fresh re-ups, and then try it again the next day. So the judgment of right versus wrong, or allowed versus not allowed, these are putting blocks in the flow of energy. And this is teaching right now that I'm giving you in terms of moving beyond paternalism, which is like saying like, father figure, am I allowed to do this? Got it? Even though I know I don't mean to sound disrespectful of people who pray to God as a father figure, but the leveling up from this level to this level is an internalizing of the God figure, so that you're not asking something external, father figure, may I do this? But you are asking yourself, am I allowed to do this? Should I do this? Is this a good thing? And then I take responsibility for it, which is a challenging thing to do. And that is the level of personal maturation, soul maturation that you're on. So this sharing and this guidance is intended for people at a particular level of their journey, where, so again, it's not meant to be a disrespect of those who pray to God as an external father figure, but when you get to a certain level, you are ready to no longer ask for permission from the father figure in a paternalistic sense, but to internalize God and take full personal levels of self-responsibility. So yeah, before, so much was being emanated was based in fear and was a distortion of the temporal ego arising from the degradation of the genetic code in humans and creating emanations of unconditional love, basing your attention and being directed by higher source. Wait, I know I'm reading my notes, which are very fragmented. You prove yourself worthy of having the limitations lifted so you can connect with greater reality presence. You got it, you got it, you got it. So those limitations of saying like, father figure, am I allowed to do this? You had to kind of like prove your worthiness, and having gone through those levels, then you're able to be like, you know something, I'm ready. I'm ready to take personal responsibility. This is the transition from teenager, adolescent to young adult and maturity. That's when you're no longer asking for permission from your parents to do something, but you start to say, I am going to do this thing and I'm going to take responsibility for it. And that is maturity. So humanity as an individual and as a collective needs to get to that level of taking personal self-responsibility in order to be able to become true star travelers. Truly talk on the time phone, because look, when you talk on the time phone, you can have a radical impact on someone else's life. You can't just go around shooting off your mouth, saying a bunch of nonsense kind of stuff, because you're going to affect other people. You get it? In a telepathic world, your mind affects reality and your mind affects other people. So you can't just be like, blah, 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 I think whatever I want with my mind, I call whoever I want on the time phone. Like that is definitely being a bull in a china shop. You know what I mean? Crashing around, having all sorts of impact. That would be like being a toddler, right? So toddlers, we don't let them run with scissors. Be like, no, you can have the safety scissors. You can have a spork. You can't have a real knife, all right? So in order to get real telepathy, you need to be able to be responsible and recognize like, wow, even sending out a thought form to another time place can radically have an impact. Think about this in terms of like cultural conquering. When people go to some place that is like the Amazon rainforest and there are indigenous tribes there that have never seen a simple technology like a lighter for making fire or something like that, and then you go there and you show them like, oh, here's this thing, it's called a lighter, you can use it to make fire. That, just seeing that has a huge impact on them, on their worldview, and on their life trajectories. So now again, we're talking about full alien disclosure and these all sorts of different types of things. If there's a bunch of aliens that have been interacting in this time place, if they talk to you in your mind, or if they sprinkle technology on top of you, like, you know, like magical sprinkles on top of your cupcakes or something like that, are they being responsible? Are they being responsible, or are they toddlers toddling around being like, okay, let's sprinkle this technology on top of you and show you that we've got big lighters and show you this and show you that, and then have a huge impact? Got it? Like, what if you see, wow, that spacecraft just did a 90-degree angle. It did not observe the laws of physics. My mind is blown. That's them being like, look, I have a big lighter. I can do this thing. You're like, I'm an Amazonian tribes person, and I didn't even know that that could exist or that that could happen. It has an impact on you and your whole entire world for that to happen. So you have to recognize, if humans have even been having genuine interactions, not hallucinatory interactions, but genuine non-illusory interactions with organisms or individuals or organizations that are showing you their technology, they're having an impact on you. And they're doing so in a way that is highly irresponsible, because they're not taking the consequences of changing and transforming your worldview. Like if an alien came into your room and you're like, it says, hi, I'm an alien. You're like, wow, aliens exist. How did you get here? So something exists and something is able to do something that I didn't even know is possible. That's like something arriving with a big lighter and being able to rock your worldview and radicalize you just by its presence. So this is the responsibility of being capacitated to be telepathic and talk with other time places. You have to make sure that you're not going to be showing a big lighter to a group of indigenous people when it is not their time to know about it. You have to be certain that you're playing the right note. Here's music. Here's non-music. You want to play real music? Play real music. How do you know how to play real music? I had to learn. Wait, this is a chord. This is hard to do. I have to actually look and choose certain things to press and certain things not to press. But when I don't have to choose to make music, then I can just mash the keyboard with my fist. Anything, 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 because anything is not music. So you're trying to be part of the cosmic symphony, trying to make actual music, not just destroy the integrity of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness through random interactions. That's big stuff, because if somebody gave you a time phone, you'd be like, cool, I can call anyone. Let's call George Washington, or let's call a Neolithic person from 10,000 years ago, or let's call someone in the future. Like, how are you going to choose who you're going to call? How are you going to choose who you're going to call and what you're going to say and what these interactions are guided by? So then you look at, in human history, many interactions were guided by conquest. I'm stronger than you, I'm taking over your place and I'm taking all your gold, or I'm raping all your women, or I'm being stronger than you and doing what I want to do. I'm going to give you noogies, bully noogies. That's not okay, definitely not. And then sometimes interactions are motivated by not conquest, but commerce. I'll give you this thing for this thing. Let's trade. And that's also not always good. Because what if you're like to the Amazonian indigenous people, I will give you this big lighter and you can give me that feathered headdress. I said, great, I will take this big lighter and then I will burn down large portions of the forest because I didn't know, what is the right way to use this. Don't trade and give firecrackers to children. And I don't mean to infantilize indigenous people at all, but to say you would never want to give technology away irresponsibly in a trade to people that don't know how to use it. That would then cause huge amounts of destruction. Dun, 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 cat's out of the bag. Guess what? That has already happened a lot, and that's actually how a lot of technology using space races even got their technology. They are the users of big lighters that are going around burning down rainforests, not knowing what they're supposed to do. So this is why I'm going to wrap it up, even though there's so much more in my notes I didn't get a chance to get to. But I will open the floor to questions. But just to say this very clearly, I'm not an advocate for the use of technology. I'm Aurora, and I'm here, and I use a computer, and I use whatever, even like crystals and spiritual technology. But what I'm really an advocate for is that your body and your divine connection is enough, and you cultivate yourself in order to be able to reach these levels of higher capacitation. Because if you need a clank metal spaceship to get off of your planet, or if you need a fake telepath telephone, like synthetic telepathy, that's not done on a bridge of love. If you need that to be able to talk to other time places, you're not ready to talk to other time places. Like, you are not ready. If you need that level of technology, you should not be talking with anyone else or interacting with anyone else. You got to get your own stuff together. I want to say S-H-I-T. Get your own stuff together before you go and interact with other complex civilizations, all right? So that's the whole point of technology itself being a danger or something that can cause undesired events and perturbations, because it allows access to or augmentations to things that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. If I give you an artificial telepathy boost, like, because the whole idea, this is spiritual attainment, that you get to this level and this level up here through your efforts. You train at the gym and run a marathon. Very, very different than putting on like an exoskeleton that's powered by electricity, and then it makes your muscles move and you're like, look, I'm running a marathon. Like, you're not running a marathon. Have a exoskeleton running a marathon for you. There are organizations, space races or species or however you want to call them, that do stuff like that. They are not running the marathon. And guess what? They don't care. They're like, I know I'm not running the marathon. I'm being artificially augmented and being empowered using technology. And that's, a big part of the challenge of what you face right now, the 3% of stuff that's not okay in your life. But I don't want you guys to be that way. I want you guys to be natural athletes who go through your levels of spiritual workouts to get the real muscles, so that you have real foundations of capacitation that don't evaporate. Because if you take away all technology, those guys that rely on technology, they're going to spiral downward. They're like, someone melted our wings. We can't sustain ourselves. We're going bye-bye. But you guys will be okay because you're like, oh, I actually can keep running because I have real muscles of consciousness, real telepathy that is based in real love, real reciprocity. You've done the real, genuine self-cultivation, and you're not about to spiral downward or fall on your cosmic butts because someone took your technology away from you. So now let me get to the chat. Lisa's saying, thank you from Golden Highest Self. You're very welcome. Joyce says, are selenite wands effective in mitigating millimeter wave? Oh, Cheeky's talking. That means we're going to take her out very soon. Don't worry, Cheeky. So selenite is actually a salt, and a type of salt, and it is very, very good for clearing. But it is not that good for mitigating millimeter waves. So salt absorbs stuff, and you use it to clear stuff out. So like at the end of a long day of going around and interacting in our community, Chica gets a little selenite rub down, a little circle stone that I rub her down with, clearing out all sorts of energy, anything that shouldn't be there. But it does not actually protect very effectively, sorry Cheeky, we're going to go soon, don't worry, against millimeter waves. So passive shielding. This is a giant thing of shungite. You can tell I put my drinks on here. It's a drinks coaster, but it's good stuff. And this actually really, really works. Very powerful stuff. And you can get, a brick like this, and it's not very expensive. And then I also have, I have a glass, not a glass, a drinking vessel that is made out of shungite also. And you can put shungite into your water. Passive shielding, good stuff, and it goes internally into your body system and helps to shield you. And then there's stuff like this is orgonite. Orgonite is passive shielding, and it works from the crystals inside of it, the quartz being under pressure in the resin and the connectivity with the metals that are in it to create like a better energy field. But all of that stuff is kind of like minimal and band-aid stuff. So it is just kind of good, and it's in your presence, and all that stuff I use, like I've actually for many years drank shungite water, put powdered shungite into my skin cream, put it into my toothbrush, put it into my stuff. It's in my bones. It's positive. I want it in my bones. But all that stuff still wasn't enough to protect me from the poop crapola waves. That is why I do my constant shielding and clearing with this. And so these golden donuts are actually a little augmentation that I'm making around the Iba crystals. And what's special about the Iba crystals is that once an hour they take a scan, and they are responsive to the environment that I'm in terms of whatever is the 5G poop crapola wave, and then they create a neutralizing or antithesis wave around me. And then I'm constantly working in these figure eights around my body system and dancing with these energy protective items in order to clear out poop crapola, because it is just so pervasive here. So I know that's a difficult answer, because it would be nice if it was just something we're in such levels of poop crapola that it's like you need hip waders. Like you don't just need like little galoshes. You need like something that protects you all the way up to here. You're wading through a lot of sewage. So difficult stuff. Christina says, hopping off for now, looking forward to catching the rest of the archive. Thank you as always, Aurora, for the beautiful encouragement and teaching. It's very welcome, Christina, and thanking you and happy that you were able to be here live for any amount of time. Thank you to the people who are able to be here live and in person, and thank you to the people who catch the archive and who find this on YouTube as well. Pedro says, it's too hot to think what to ask, but love the lasagna. Thank you so much. I recognize if it's summertime and it's very hot, and it is 10,000 degrees here in Southern California where I live too. No problem at all, and thank you for your presence, long-term presence as a student in class. And Charlie B says, don't fall off your cosmic butts. Don't fall on your cosmic butts. He's laughing. LOL. LOL. Yeah, exactly. That is the cautionary tale of being reliant upon technology. Like, think about if you have a big starship, quote unquote, like a clank metal starship, and it has life support systems, blah blah blah, and Captain Jean-Luc Picard is on board as the as the captain of that ship. And if it's like, if life support systems go to zero, everybody dies. Do you know why? Because you're not actually supposed to be there. Because you know why? You're reliant upon a giant technological thing called the Starship Enterprise to actually transport you through time, space from point A to point B. my collective and what actual star travelers do. So you run the marathon with your consciousness and the natural divine connection that you have. You are the technology, you are the spaceship, and there's no way for you to be left without your life support systems. You're like, I am my life support systems. I am my life support systems. You don't have to go to another planet to get fresh dilithium crystals or something like that. You're like, I sustain myself, and you sustain yourself, and it is also reciprocal, and you sustain the other love-based creatures or organisms that, life forms is a better word. You sustain the other love-based life forms that you are connected to. Because I didn't talk about it enough, but this telepathic network is life-sustaining. When you give energy and inspiration and ideas on this telepathic network and receive them, you are receiving vital information that helps keep you alive. It's important stuff. What do you talk about on the time phone, and who do you talk with? Whom do you talk with about that important stuff? The answer is dictated by what you need in order to continue to have existence. Longevity and coherence, because you are part of a giant stellar network that is a neurological network of consciousness that is not just doing random signaling. In your body, you don't just have random signaling. You don't have random neurological signaling, and you don't have random cell-to-cell signaling. You have something that is called biological metabolism, where your cells are doing stuff that's important, and your mitochondria and all of these things are like, they're talking to each other, and there's patterns, and there's a reason, and there's a meaning to it. And that is what true telepathy is supposed to be like too. You don't just send out random crap. You don't just think stupid random things and have everybody else in the cosmos be like, oh, like there's that person thinking stupid random thoughts. You send out essential information to other aspects of self who receive that life-giving information from you, and then you receive life-giving information from them. Totally different paradigm of what communication is. Like in this world, a lot of communication, some of it is, again, just normal nonsense, pass the ketchup. Some of it is commerce. I'll buy this thing from you, you buy this thing from me. Some of it is self-serving, but very little of it is like, this is a life-affirming message that I am calling you up to keep you alive. Very little of our communication in this world is on that level. You got it? A lot of errant signal and a lot of stuff that is nonsense. But true telepathy, all of the music is music, and the music is non-random, and the music is meant to keep you alive. You're like, I got something to say on the time phone, you got to hear this, and it is meant to keep you alive. It can be something important, like, hey, whatever you do, don't do that thing. You get it? Like, if you do that thing, you're gonna die. Don't do that thing. Or if you want to stay alive, go over here and do this thing instead. And that can be really important. And sometimes you're the person that's telling someone else what to do and what not to do, and you're saving yourself. You are helping, guiding, sustaining, and saving yourself in another body, in another time, place, and helping yourself across time. Big stuff. And Pedro says, in a telepathic society, do we have privacy? Great question. Thank you, as always. You always open the door for me to be able to talk about things that are very relevant and maybe not in my notes. So yes, in a telepathic society, you have different levels of intimacy. Just like here in this world, you have different levels of, let's say, accessibility in terms of your physical space. So in my physical space here, like I'm here in my art room, that's in my house, and you're only allowed to come in to this room if you have an invitation. But if I'm outside in my driveway, like anybody that's driving by or walking by on the sidewalk, like they can see me. I'm kind of in a semi-public space. Got it? So there's a certain amount of sharingness in a telepathic society that happens in a semi-public sense, where you're like, yep, this is the aspect of self that I'm willing to share with the rest of the world. So if I'm in my driveway, like, clearly, like I'm going to be, wearing clothes and presentable to society. But in order for someone to be in my house, I have a front door, and you have to actually say, knock, 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 can I come in? Being polite and appropriate in a telepathic society means if you want to go beyond the level of public sharing, you have to say, knock, 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 can I please come in? Can I have consent? Do I have consent to come inside of your mind? This is what non-barbaric loving, appropriate telepathic communication is like. Got to ask for permission. And if I come to the front door and I say, no, get out of here, like we don't want any, you go away. You respect my no. Saying no is a sacred activity because I'm saying I don't want that in my mind. Get it? Or I don't want you to come in my mind, or I don't want my stuff that I have here to come inside of your mind. And if you have an invitation or if you get consent and you come through my front door, then you're like, okay, you're allowed to be in my living room or in my kitchen. Those are considered public spaces in my house, which is a private house. But in my, public spaces, I still don't show you everything. Like I have like private places in my house where I might do something like, making my artwork. Or then there's the ultimate privacy, which is like your bedroom, your bathroom. That's where you do things that are private, completely private, body processes and changing your clothes and other things that are just like, no, like you don't let anyone come in there and do that. So in a telepathic society, you have areas of your mind that are totally private, where it's like your private diary. And you're allowed to think and feel and speak and say anything that you need to or want to say, and just be completely yourself. Let your hair down, take off your bra, whatever you do, that's your real self. And other people aren't there looking at you. You are respected in those places. And again, like there's, the sense of intimate partners. In this time place, we have intimate partners that you might allow into your intimate bedroom or that you might be completely vulnerable with, but that takes trust and respect. And same thing in a telepathic society. If you want to have the ultimate intimacy with a person's mind, you must have trust and respect, which means you have to cultivate that relationship. Again, consent, consent, consent. You can't just expect to have that quote unquote on the first date. You get it? You gotta prove and show who you are, that you are worthy of having that level of vulnerability and intimacy to go deep inside of someone's mind and know about them. And then of course, like any kind of thing that would be considered like psychic surgery, mental influencing, hypnosis, or reprogramming, all of that would require the ultimate consent, like not only watching or looking at or interacting with, but actually like restructuring you and who you are and stuff like that. Like that is deep, deep stuff. As a very, very brief aside, one time I went to an NLP, a neuro-linguistic programming conference. I learned a lot, but that was not for me at all. But I thought I would learn more about how to communicate with humans, but no, I just learned a lot about hypnosis. And they did this hypnosis with this lady on the stage, and I was shocked and horrified because she had only just met the person who was doing the stage hypnosis. She went deep into like her mother issues and all this stuff. It's like psychic surgery is happening on the stage, and like they didn't have a sterile environment, they didn't wash their hands, they didn't wash the surgical instruments, they didn't follow up with the patient, they didn't even sew the patient back up. I was horrified by that. That was like butchery, not the way that type of stuff is supposed to happen. So, speak in positives, what is it like in a truly telepathic psychic society? Because that is what my Aurora Collective is like. So first of all, we achieved that state of being a collective over the course of many millennia. As I told you about the ascension process many times in ancient or concurrent Atlantis, where you transcend from the level of walking on the physicality realm, but you're not yet totally untethered from the world. We were like a floating collective that was constantly circulating, following the sun, but tethered to earth. And during that time, we got together as a band. And that means that we learned about each other over the course of many millennia. Learned about each other. You don't have to do all of this, like I said, on the first date. It can take a very long time to be able to get that level of respect and trust, to be able to say to someone, okay, like here's all the pages of my book. Read all the pages of the book of me and find out who I really am. And it's also like when maybe you do this with your intimate partners, where you're like, okay, these are my greatest shames, and then these are my greatest triumphs. Like this is the truthful nature of who I truly am. Even though I recognize in this time place, not everybody does that, even with their intimate physical partners. But that would be like the ultimate of trust and friendship. Be like, say like, yeah, this is me at my lowest point, boom. And then this is the best of me and the worst of me. And then that's real love, when you love someone on that level, or it could be in deep friendship where you're like, you know something, I don't have to hide myself, this is who I truly am as a person, and then, you know, love me or reject me as the person that I am. So it takes time to get together and develop that level of trust, respect, and rapport as a whole group. And that's what my Aurora Collective has done. So at a certain point, you learn about everybody, you learn about everybody's characteristics, you learn about everybody's highs and lows and everything that they've done, and there's love and acceptance and celebration of the entirety of who you are. And then there's also the trust and reciprocity, where you know, like, if you jump, someone's going to catch you. That's what the commitment is across time. Jump and someone's going to catch you. That is what it is. Like the way that I'm committed to my dog. I'm like, I will care about my dog no matter what. You know what I'm talking about? Like, her dog biscuits, we will pay for them no matter what. We will make sure that she has her goodies and her dog biscuits. No excuses. She's taken care of. Because I make a commitment to her. Like, I adopted her. I'm like, you're part of the family now. Get it? And I know family is a very fraught word in this time place that some people have been either disappointed by or outwardly rejected by or abandoned by their family. So I say that word and they're kind of like, oh, family, I'm melting. But family on this soul level is a commitment across time where you're like, yeah, no matter what, I'm going to help you out. No matter what, I'm going to be there for you. No matter what, I'm going to love and accept you and bring you forward or care for you or make sure you get what you need. And that's what this reciprocal mutualism is in the Aurora Collective and in these higher states of being. You're like, yeah, we are a band, we are a family, we are a soul family, we are a collective, and I'm not letting anybody fall. Not losing anybody. No one's going to slip through the cracks or be discarded or be diminished or something like that. It means you get what you need. Like, that's a no-brainer. Like, you get what you need to be sustained and to flourish, but let's say if you start to falter, like if you start to get diseased or you lose your energy or something is happening, we do something about it. You get it? There's no way to be like, oh yeah, that's a part of me, but it's going into decline and I'm just standing there doing nothing about it, which is very, very different than this time place where I had to actually learn what it was like when I was in my community in Woodstock, when I first came here. I was like, yeah, some people don't have enough food to eat. And I'm like, some people don't have enough food to eat, and your whole entire community is just standing around doing nothing about it. It's like, yep, that's exactly it. That sometimes there's the witnessing of distress without actually doing something about it because there's not that same level of commitment to the health and well-being, to everything that's around you. Hold on one second. Like clockwork, Cheeky always has something to say when my landlord comes home, and she's always like, woof. So I know it tells me it's the end of class, probably time for Cheeky to have a walk. So Pedro asks, okay, so no hive mind like the Borg? No. In fact, thank you for bringing that up. So the Borg is science fiction. Again, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. And the Borg is technological. The Borg are literally a bunch of cyborgs that I think are bioorganisms that have had cyborg-like implantations into them, and that they are a connected mind, but that they don't connect over a telepathic bridge of love. So when you don't connect in the sense of love, you don't have that same level of commitment and mutualism and reciprocity. And there are species or organisms or organizations that are non-terrestrial that are of that level, and it means that they don't have a commitment to one another. So you got like disposable drones. They're like, yeah, I don't care about that guy over there. I'm not committed to him on a soul level. He's just a wired up node and an implantation. Like easy come, easy go. We'll implant a new guy. That guy can go get blown up in pieces. Throw him out the window. We'll get a new guy. And my collective is not like that. We're like, no, every one of us is a precious, priceless facet on a gem. No one is disposable. We're going to make sure that everybody is okay on a soul level. So the Borg and cyborg and telepathic hive mind that is made from synthetic telepathy and non-love-based telepathy is quite aberrant. It is a connectivity and an intimacy, but without the love and commitment that is required for that level of intimacy. So now you start to get it. Like, there's a reason why you're not supposed to use technology in the world, because technology kind of makes these bridges and makes these things come together and happen that actually shouldn't be happening. The Borg mind should not actually be happening. I didn't really know the show that much, but Captain Picard gets implanted with the Borg, and then he becomes part of this technological mind, and he's not supposed to be a part of them. They invaded his mind and they took him over. Well, it's very distressing, but something similar to that is happening on this planet right now. And that is what nano wetware is, and that is what subcutaneous pollutions are, and that is what the millimeter wave and the lies, the substrate of lies that follow on the millimeter wave is all about. Trying to get humanity to be interactive with and even connected to and uploaded to a non-loving telepathic communication network. You become the Internet of Things. And again, I can't speak about this that openly and maintain my YouTube channel, which is why come to my Patreon. We'll talk about it. Have a cup of tea. I'll make that face. I'll have a cup of tea, and I'll tell you all about it. Thank you. Marie says, thank you. Another great class. Absolutely. And Trish says, singularity instead, true singularity. So this true singularity, and Trish, thank you for being here, and we should really connect, and I've been extremely busy. The true singularity is unity consciousness, and no technology is needed in order to have that level of true connection and mind-to-mind communication and interactivity at singularity. So in human words, singularity is defined as the transhumanist singularity, where human mind melds with machine. And that is a type of immortality that is sought after by the limited and self-destructive ego state. But that's not the singularity that I'm talking about. That is this singularity at the center here that happens when you're an ascended master and you are in alignment with the true core nature of your being and your characteristics and who you truly are on a soul level. So the singularity of transhumanism I find to be a very destructive and distressing thing, and is not something that I advocate for, and that it's something that I warn against with every fiber of my being. That I don't want you guys to get uploaded to the Borg. I don't want you to become part of the Internet of Things, and it's not a freedom to be at the transhumanist singularity. It is a diminishment or an imprisonment, even though like many humans think like, oh, like it's great, like you'll be even smarter. Like, no, you won't be smarter. No, you're already a supercomputer. You're a biological divine supercomputer. You're not going to be smarter by being quote unquote uploaded to some kind of a big computer or apparatus or machine mind or any of those things. All of those things represent dilutions of what you are and who you are, and that thing wants to eat you because you are creative and juicy, and it is dried out and non-juicy. Sorry, I'm being silly, but it's not creative and divinely inspired at all. It's definitely not juicy at that level. Charlie B says, totally agree. Technology is here in this world used principally to deceive and control. Absolutely. Because you know what? So my level of being and true galactic citizens, you don't have to use technology and you don't have to manipulate and deceive and control. When you have true strength, you don't have to wheedle and beg and manipulate and machinate and try to get all this stuff to happen. You make stuff happen. When you are divinely connected, you make stuff happen. So imagine it's like this. It's like if you have billions of dollars and you want to get a project done. You don't have to go around begging and be like, hey, give me $5, please, oh please contribute to my project, or fool people, like false telemarketing and be like, blah, 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 give me this money, and then use the money to be able to do stuff that you want to get done. You've got billions of dollars. You can literally do whatever the F you want. That is what it is to be divinely connected and truly in a love-based telepathic society. But when I say do whatever the F you want, that is also, you have gotten there by being a true marathon runner, and you have truly mitigated self-destruction, psychopathology, and other negative ego issues to the point where you're not going to abuse your power. So everybody who is a power abuser is using technology to control, deceive, and manipulate others because they are not truly powerful. They can't actually run a marathon. They need a silly exoskeleton to get anywhere, and they can't actually get stuff done. But what they can do is try to hijack your information or hijack your divine connection and be like, oh, well, what if I get some juicy human energy from you? And then I'll make stuff happen. And if you have your own juicy energy source, you don't need to do stuff like that. And you don't need to lie, and you don't need to pretend. So everything that I've been doing as the past 20 years being here as Aurora has been to exemplify to you what it is to be a genuine, empowered, interdimensional, and loving, cosmic citizen. Where it's like, yep, participate in freedom. I don't have to do like a big like manipulation, sales pitches and that. I'm like, nope, here's flying rainbow lasagna. It's here. Do it if you want to. You don't have to do it. Very, very different than things that are like, no, you must do this. I twist your arm, or I lie, or, under threat, do something under threat or coercion. Nothing about my level of being or my Aurora Collective is done through coercion. Everything is done through consent. Because also, you start to learn in these systems that things that are done through coercion are incredibly flimsy architectures. That if it's only done through coercion, like here you have that story of Machiavelli, like either you rule through fear or you rule through love. But if you rule through fear, it's flimsy. Like if you're, that's being the babysitter, where you're like, you better do this, otherwise you're gonna get spanked. And if the babysitter turns away, then the kids are like, good, no one's watching, I'll do whatever I want to do. But when you rule through love, then the kids are like, I want to do the right thing because I love Aurora, and I don't want Aurora to be mad at me because she'll be disappointed in me and it'll feel bad, and blah blah blah. So love is way, way, way more powerful in terms of creating long-lasting social dynamic infrastructure and commitment. That people do things because of love that they would never do because of fear. And when you think about that, like how strong idealized parental love is, like the things that people do for their children because they love them, or again, the things that I do for my dog, like she gets the best everything. She gets the best everything because I love her. And it's not because of fear. And then this also relates to the transcendence of a fear-based externalized deity. If you're only doing good stuff because you're afraid of being smited by a biblical God who is going to send you to eternal torment if you do the wrong thing, that's a pretty flimsy architecture. But if you are doing the right thing because you genuinely are in love with God, in love with life, in love with being, and wanting to sustain creation, and wanting to continually generate and create and sustain life, and be a part of real music. You want to play good music, and you want to keep the beat going because you love music. Like, you don't play the piano because someone makes you do it, and otherwise they're going to torture you. You play piano because you love to play piano, because it's who you are. That's strong stuff. And that is also what the refinery of experience is here to refine. Like, it is here to refine the really good athletes that are like, yep, I do this because I love to do this. I do this because that's who I am on a basic nature. And then you guys are the ones who become the band that moves on and creates reality. And the other guys that aren't ready to be at that level have to learn more. They have to learn more, and that is the cosmos setting boundaries. That's the cosmos saying, like, look, I love you, and there are boundaries, and there are consequences, and if you don't do this, you can't be in the band. So I always say to you guys, like, congratulations, like, you passed the audition. You got to be a biological entity. That's good, you passed the audition. But then in order to level up to the next level of a totally empowered reality co-creation across time, you got to pass the next audition. And you want it to be that way because you don't want a bunch of psychopaths getting into the band and smashing their guitars and, whatever, hurting other people with bad music and hurting their ears with bad music. So any other comments or questions? Your comments and questions are beautiful, and I really appreciate everyone who's here and who adds to the class. If there's any more comments or questions, then I'm open to that right now. And if not, I will end the recording because I'm just looking at the time. And even though I did give Cheeky a walk this morning, Cheeky gets the best, and she needs to have another walk and possibly also some good dog treats and other good stuff. So just want to make sure that I speak to everything that can be said today. Really positive, good class and good presentation today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, If there's no other questions or comments, then I'll just say thank you and profound appreciation for attenuating to my ideas, and for those who are here and for those who catch the archive.